and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. LaScavitch?
Here.
Mr. Lombardo?
Here.
Ms. McDermott? Here. Mr. McGinley?
Present.
I think you're muted. It's on.
Present.
Mr. McGinley?
He said present.
You did?
Present.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Schnee?
Present.
Mr. Thornton?
Here.
Mr. Urban?
Here.
Mr. Wilovich?
Here.
Ms. Radel?
Here.
All present.
Okay, we have public comment on the proposed ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a proposal to reduce the interest rate on the County of Luzerne, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, non-electoral indebtedness of the General Obligation Note Series 2019, originally issued in the principal amount of $33,305,000 for and toward financing a capital improvement program, a current refunding program, and paying the cost of issuing the note, providing for maximum interest rate, maximum maturity amounts, and place of payment with respect to the 2019 note, making a covenant for the payment of the debt service on the amended and restated note, providing for the filing of any required documents, authorizing the execution of documentation memorializing the change in interest rate and delivery thereof, including the delivery of an amended and restated note, and authorizing other necessary action. I have Martin Darto from Wilkes-Barre. You have a public hearing comment?
Yes. Good evening, member of council, my fellow citizens of Luzerne County. I'm Martin Darso, president of the People's Committee, the city of Wilkes-Barre. I'd like to talk about agenda number 3.
This is just on the public hearing. The Webster Bank law.
Water?
It's the Webster Bank law, just that.
No, I want to talk about agenda number 3.
This is for the public hearing,
All right,
not the agenda.
all right, cool.
Okay, yeah, you can come back for the
I made a
agenda.
mistake too on mine. So take mine off.
Yours too?
Theodore
Okay.
Fitzgerald.
Okay,
All
Thank
right,
you so much.
all right, thank you. We'll get you for the next public comment.
all right.
Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. Mr. Knapp, did you want to make a comment on this?
Ron Nanticoke,
Yes.
U.S. Army veteran. I'm 100% behind the refinancing that we're discussing right now anyway to save Luzerne County citizens, taxpayers money. $33 million in debt, that's something else that is alarming, but the fact of the matter is if we can reduce the interest rate on that $33 million, so we're not subject to pay more on interest rate cost. Sure, I'm 100% behind that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Mr. Morelli?
Yes.
Sure. I don't have any other stuff here. Does anybody else have anything on the public hearing? Mr. Newman?
John Newman. I'm in favor of it, but I see some wording that says amended and restated note. My question is one of the amendments extending the term of the loan?
No.
Usually when there is a change, the change in a loan, especially with a new interest rate, there could be an extension on that loan. So that's my question.
No.
No?
No.
No.
Positive?
Positive, it's stated
Thank
right,
you.
yep.
I'm in favor of it.
Anybody else on the public hearing? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, none, adjourned. We will be back at 6:01 for the voting session.
Yeah, same original dates, yeah.
All right, at 6:01, we'll call the meeting to order. We already did the pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. Roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Here.
Mr. Lombardo.
Here.
Mr. Dermott.
Here.
Mr. Finley.
Present.
Mr. Perry.
Here.
And Harley Prevent. Mr. Schnee.
Present.
Mr. Gordon.
Here.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Willoughby.
Here.
Mr. Radel.
Here.
All present.
We don't have any recognitions or ceremonial proclamations today. Any deletions from the agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I like that motion, Greg alone.
Second. Dan.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Agenda adopted. Public comment on voting session agenda items. Mr. Griffith?
Good evening. I just have a question on the agenda. Thursday, we have an airport board meeting, and I don't see on the agenda the appointment of the chair or the designee for the chair. Is that going to, are you going to have a designee at the airport board meeting?
Yes.
It's not on the agenda.
So in the past, it hasn't been put on the agenda, just we'll announce it at a meeting so that it's brought into the minutes.
Okay, so it won't be announced at this meeting?
We'll announce it at the end of the work session like I do the rest of the committee.
Oh, okay, all right, very good. All right, on the agenda item, thank you for clarifying that, appreciate it. On the agenda, I want to talk about item number 5, 6, and 7. I'll start with, first of all, I have item number 3 here circled. I think the agreement with the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority needs to get better scrutiny. I think the ability for the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority to get benefits from the county in exchange for the money that we pay for the rain tax or levy or the MS4 fee is something that we should just pay the money. We should put it in the budget to pay the money. It's not fair to the other municipalities. Sewer authority services 32 municipalities. The county has 76 municipalities. So therefore, those other municipalities will be burdened with footing the bill for the services that the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority is going to get from the county in exchange for the rain tax that we were supposed to be paying in the budget. I think it's better for us to budget the money and then charge the sewer authority accordingly for the services they get, because we don't know the services. There's no cap on the agreement. This says the services will be higher than the amount of money that we owe them. So we either need to put a cap on that or pay the fee and let them pay as they go a la carte. Item number 6, motion to adopt resolution censoring and finding Luzerne County Councilman Stephen J. Irvin for violating Luzerne County Commonwealth Charter and Accountability Code. Clearly, I understand the situation with Mr. Urban and the ability for him to be placed on the election board and that whole issue that we dealt with as members of council back in the day when that happened. But the censor part of 217 of the charter deals with interfering with the executive branch. It does not, if you read section 217, it does not pertain to violating the charter. It pertains to interfering with the executive branch. The ability for us to make Mr. Urban pay a fine of $100 based on section 217 is insanity. That's not what the charter says. 217 does not deal with violating the charter, nor does the ethics code deal with violating the charter for section 217. And that's the only place where it says we can levy a fine against a member of council for interfering with the executive branch. And that's the only reason for the censor. I certainly think what transpired was not right. I certainly think that Mr. Urban was dealt with accordingly by the council by being removed from that board. But I think the ability to censor or fine Mr. Urban is a step over the line as to what the language of the charter really says.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith.
Okay. All right. I have another item, but my time's expired.
Yes.
I'll catch you later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Newman?
I will speak towards item 5. Apparently there's 2 schools of thought, and having been someone who has interviewed many people, it's always nice to have the individual in front of you so you can see them how they react to your questions, how they address certain situations. They have interviewed people over the telephone. You get straight answers over the phone. You interpret their answers, and it is a good alternative. I've never interviewed anybody virtually through a teleconference, and I think that would be much better than a telephone interview. And I do favor the in-person interview. However, you must consider the virtual interviews by the committee, because the same people that they're going to interview and present to you, you're going to interview them in person. So if you understand where I'm coming from, you're going to have two separate interviews for the same people. Do they need to be interviewed in person twice? That is the consideration that you have to make. I think either way is proper, and that's your choice what you want to do. As far as the money is concerned, in today's operations, the amount of money being requested is not a lot of money, and should not be a governing factor in the decision that you make. So again, my point is the same people being interviewed twice, do they need to be interviewed in person 2 times? Thank you.
Mr. Brannon, Mountaintop.
Craig Brandon, Wright Township. We're speaking on agenda item 8 tonight. Good evening, council representatives. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My mom is disabled. She has a genetic disease that is only going to worsen. She is currently recovering from 1 major surgery and has another 3 that are needed as I speak. It took everything she had to address the previous council on November 23rd.
Mr. Brennan, I don't mean to interrupt you, but there is no agenda item number 8 on our voting agenda tonight.
It says on this agenda item, page 73, 74, discussion regarding FPA request ARP.
That is on our work session.
Okay.
So you could have a chance to talk at the work session. Were there any agenda items you needed to address?
No, I thought that was an agenda item.
That's okay. I'll put you down for the work session, okay?
Okay, that's good.
All right, Mr. Morelli?
Good evening, council. Rick Morelli from Jeddo Township. I'm here to address item number 5. And I'm here on behalf of a couple different things. The committee, manager search committee, someone who's on the study commission, someone who's on council. Obviously, Mr. Hack is going to come here tonight and ask for money. And although publicly I disagree, I don't think it's a waste of, I think it's a waste of time and money. I'm not here to say no to do it. If the committee votes for it and you think it's worthwhile, then go for it. But I think that there's better ways for us to move this process along, which comes to the second point I want to make. When I interviewed with this committee, I came here because, and I said clearly, this is your job. This is council's job to hire this manager. You have to start, I believe the council needs to start moving forward with your process, what you want to do, how you want to interview. Because right now, when we give you those names, whatever names, we don't know what to tell them what you're going to do. So really, council needs to start moving forward on that, to understand that. Again, I probably have a little bit more experience than some. I don't really need to see them in person. I agree. In fact, I probably learn a lot more from Zoom. Our past interviews were only half an hour. I think, in today's age, we could probably learn a lot more from from a Zoom and dig deep. And we do still have some people that we have to vet, which is part of our job. But, let me go to the third point here is with the study commission. A lot of people are misinterpreting this government or the committee. The whole reason why we put this on there was just, it's a checks and balance. Just so whatever council is on doesn't go and put their person on. It's a checks and balance. And with that said, if you read the only 3 sentences, because there's only 3 sentences in the charter, It's also a checks and balances with the committee as well. Okay, that means that when you have the time, you can check with what we've done, who we've interviewed, how we interviewed. Okay, and the point of it is that, you know, really, it's not us against you, it's really us working with you. So again, I just came here to share some thoughts, give you some advice, some things to think about, not to tell you what to do or not to do, but just to really think about the way the charter's ran, understand your role, understand that you make that final decision. And again, it would be helpful that once we get to that point of those final members, we could tell them exactly what you're gonna do so that they know, because the clock is ticking and we've already lost a couple. And, you know, the longer it goes on, the more confusing it is. And if we fly people in twice, it's only gonna make it a little bit harder. So again, just some things to think about, which is why I came here. So thank you. Good luck to everyone. Wish all of you the best. And again, there's some new people here, so good luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Morelli. Mr. Knapp?
Thank you, Madam Chair, give me the opportunity to address the important subject. I think the most important is motion to adopt approval budget by allotting funds for County Manager Research Committee. First of all, I would like to thank Chris Hackett, Chair, and Alec Sinkevich, Mrs. Hamanko. I'm sorry if I'm really not pronouncing his names right. Richard Morelli, Mr. O'Donnell, Patty, and Walter Mitchell, Patrick Patty. These individuals deserve a lot of credit for their due diligence and what they've been doing thus far in the search process. I truly believe that funds should be allocated for this process of bringing them in face to face. You know, we have to consider that the current manager, she's been in the public eye in Luzerne County for quite some time now. And she has a little bit of an advantage in that area where the committee members meeting these individuals face to face is, I think, absolutely pertinent. Also, I wanted to mention regards to the agenda 2, which is a motion to introduce an ordinance amending the 2022 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County state facility closure. The resolution must be approved so the funds can be appropriately distributed to 6 communities. These 6 communities, Nanticoke being one of them, will be facing hardship because of the state facility closure of Whitehaven and SCI retreat. If you not approve these funds, the money will not be available for these communities who might very well have to have the money designated for some other earmarked projects. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Mr. Fitzgerald?
Theodore John Fitzgerald, Wilkes-Barre, PA. I'm going to address agenda item number 5. I think the manager's position is actually even more it's more important than your positions, because we do have a part-time, home role, which is how the charter grows. But the person that has the most amount of power in this county is the manager. They run the day-to-day operations, very responsible for many different departments. And again, I think we need to hire fiscal conservative. Again, I think that the county spoke when we elected you guys Republicans in office. We said that. So I would really like you guys to allow the search committee to do their job, and let's get on with it. Really, never just spoke about that. Let's get them in. If we have to just see them once, fly them in once, maybe they could see them and you guys could see them in the same day, whatever. But I think spending the money is so important because of face-to-face. Communication is only 20% verbal. You can't really read a person on a Zoom meeting. So I would rather, let's fix the car right, so we don't have to fix it over and over and over again. I want the ability of the city council to find the best possible candidates. I think this is critical to the successful government and the function of the search committee. We need the best and brightest people to apply for the county manager position, and money should not be a factor in this. And money's big with me, but sometimes, what is it? Penny wise and dollar foolish. Let's not do that. Let's get the best of the best in here. Let's get the right candidate, fiscal responsible, so we can even get better interest rates We don't have to increase taxes. We can really tighten the ship down, and that'll help you guys do the jobs that we elected you to do. Thank you. Oh, wait, number 6, by the time. I don't think Steve Irwin should be censored. I think, Walter said it pretty good. But there's also other things that I did some research, and there's other things I think. Now, this is what I found out, so I'm not 100% sure, so don't kill me if I'm wrong. But from what I heard, Councilman McGinley has an office in the courthouse. I think it's a violation of county charter, administrative code, and the bylaws. Nothing's done to him. County Clerk Council has a charter mandated duty to perform the codification of the county council every 2 years, and under the direction of county chairman. Has that been done in over 7 years? So there's a lot of things that we don't do right. That happens because we do our best, and that happens. We make mistakes, and sometimes we can't handle everything. If I see a kid drowning and it says keep off, I'm gonna jump in the pool and save the kid. I think that was Steve's intentions. They were honorable. They were trying to make sure, because with the ballots getting thrown in the dumpster and everything, God, I don't want to see us in the federal, like in the news. I don't want to see us on Fox and NBC, for all that. I like to see Luzerne County doing well. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Mr. Dartel?
Good evening. Madam Chair, member of council, my fellow citizen. Thank you for this for giving me this opportunity to speak to you tonight. Where's McGinley? The Wyoming Valley Sanitarium serves 32 counties, 32 communities of our counties, and the ability for county council to provide service to them at the expense of the entire county is unfair. The county manager, Berkemore, should have placed this item in the budget to be paid, and just like other utilities and electric and service and gas, discharge the Wyoming Valley Sanitarium the same rate as the other people that use our service for filling of liens and using the GIS system. The 2022 budget was provided to county council, and the county manager, Berkemore, did not provide the fee for the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority in her budget. Why? But she did not, but she was not bashful in providing merit raise for county employees. The bill should be paid. That means pay the bill. We need to pay the bill before, when there's any salary for raises, not just pay for your friends. We're sick and tired of seeing the county with what's going on. We need each and every individual to step up, to do what is right. That's why each and every individual was selected by the people to represent the people of this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dartel.
Where is McGinley?
Any other members of the public have comments on voting session and agenda items?
Madam Chair, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Okay, Mr. Rabo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to item number
Mr. Rabo,
3.
hang on one second. Hang on one second. We're having trouble hearing him. Can you try again, Mr. Rabo?
Can you hear me now, Madam Chair?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to item number 3, the partnership agreement with the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority, I have a question with regards to municipalities that pay the stormwater fee that aren't part of the sanitary authority, like the Greater Hazleton Joint Sewer Authority, that are already paying the stormwater fee. Will this be a double charge? That's my question. I didn't raise it at the last meeting, at the work session, because I wasn't sure if this pertained to the Hazleton area and the southern end of Luzerne County that pays through their sanitary authorities and joint sewer authorities in the southern end of the county. That would be my question on item number 3. Item number 4, with respect to the PennDOT, is this going to be with regards to the bridges as far as the grant funding, or is this just a total for a request for the adoption of the agreement to get the funding for the bridges? That would be my question on that. Item number 5, I think I would like to ask the question with regards to, and I'm agnostic on the manager candidates either coming in person or being on Zoom, but I do believe, and I said this the last time there was a manager search, I did say there need to be more clarification with respect to the manager search committee and their role. Are they a search committee or are they a steering committee? There is a difference, and that needs to be, there needs to be clarification next time around with respect to that. And lastly, Madam Chair, on item number 6, I do believe that the removal and the special meeting were enough, especially when you have, if you're going forward with this would set a precedence moving forward. That means any official in Luzerne County that there's a removal, there needs to be a subsequent penalty moving forward, regardless of who's at fault. And I would just like to remind you, Madam Chair, that there were council members who voted to remove a duly elected district attorney in violation of the state constitution under Article 6, Section 7. So if you move forward with this, then there will be repercussions and consequences moving forward with respect to any action. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public on agenda items only?
Brian Shiner.
Go ahead, Mr. Shiner.
In item number 5, council has appointed a group of citizens to perform the task of finding a new county manager. These people are professionals, and the chair of the committee is a professional in the employment field. Doing interviews remotely, virtually, is not quite the same as in person. I've done many interviews, hired many, many people over the years. And when you talk to someone on the phone or do a virtual meeting, it's not the same as having them right in front of you. I feel the council needs to allocate the money to allow them to bring these people in for the interviews so they can make the best choice of candidates to present to you, the council, who will be the final deciding vote. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 25th, 2022 voting session?
So, second, Mr. Thornton.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, moving on to agenda item under the county manager number 1. It's the motion to adopt the ordinance regarding the Webster Bank renegotiation.
Second.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Number 2, motion to introduce ordinance amending the 2022 fiscal year budgets for the Luzerne County State Facility Closure Ordinance.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
yes,
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Number 3, motion to adopt resolution authorizing the county manager to execute a partnership agreement with Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority.
If I may, there is an amendment to the agreement.
Yes, if we could just get a motion and a second to introduce, and then we could make the amendment.
I'll make the motion.
Motion.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. I do want to report that after some dialogue and input, particularly from Councilman Scavenge, I was able to reach out to the WVSA and they, Jim Tomaine, and we will be removing paragraph E from the agreement regarding liens.
So I have a question. So that would mean they would pay the regular lien fee as
Correct.
everybody else?
They'll be paying the regular lien fee.
Okay.
All right, motion to remove paragraph E. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a roll call on just the amendment.
No.
Okay. I know. Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
yes,
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the amendment passed, and now are you guys still okay with making the first and second on this?
Yes.
All right, so can we have a roll call on the entire agreement?
Mr. McGinley,
yes,
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
No.
Mr. Wilovich.
No.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
8-2.
Number 4, motion to adopt resolution authorizing the county manager to execute the master agreement with PennDOT.
Present. Schnee.
Second, LaScavitch.
Roll call, Ms. Lawrence?
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
I'm gonna abstain for previous reason. Manager and solicitor are one and the same.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott.
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
yes,
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
9 with 1 abstention.
Number 5, motion to adopt resolution approving a budget transfer to allot funds to the county manager search committee.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Les.
On the question,
Yes.
Mr. Hackett or Mr. Morelli, if you would want to respond, where exactly are we at? I read in the paper, we have 5 candidates. Are we dwindling that down more? Or is that 5 people you're bringing to the table now? My question is because I have no thing with flying them down. If you're going to dwindle it down to 3 people or 2 people or whatever you're going to do, I have no, at that time, flying people in. But as Mr. Newman said, I have a little thing of, first of all, I'm working for somebody else. And these people are coming in now twice. I don't think they would want to come in twice for an interview, knowing that they're already employed someplace else.
If I could just interject, I'll let you in 1 second. Just quickly, I just want council to know in your packet, it has the email regarding the schedule. This right here, this motion on our voting session right now is just the funding. We can discuss the schedule after that. So if Mr. Hackett, you want to stick to the funding and Mr. Shee's question, we could talk about the schedule later.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So my name is Chris Hackett. Thank you for allowing me to address council. This is a critical position for our county, and it's critical that our committee does complete comprehensive work The only way we can effectively do that is if we go through a complete process of assessing candidates, so we can deliver to you the type of quality candidate you're looking for, so that you can hire the right manager for the counties going forward.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Hackett? Roll call, Ms. Lawrence?
Mr. Schnee,
No,
Mr.
I,
Thornton,
I would, if he's saying he's dwindling it down, I have no objection of paying for, I have an objection to the plan paying for people coming in twice.
Mr. Thornton,
That's the reason for the no vote.
I vote yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott.
Yes.
Mr. McKinley.
No.
Mr. Perry.
No.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
7 yes, 3 no.
And Mr. Hackett, there is an agenda item on our work session regarding the search committee, if you don't mind sticking around, if there's any questions there.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Number 6, motion to adopt resolution censuring and finding Luzerne County Councilman Stephen J. Urban for violating the Luzerne County Accountability, Conduct, and Ethics Code and Home Rule Charter.
Present.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Lawrence?
On the motion. I have some feelings on this. I think that we already litigated this back when the previous council removed him from the office that he sought. I think that this is also an example of where the charter does interfere and collide with state law. And, I think that he's already been punished, in my opinion. I'm voting no on this. And honestly, I do feel like this is a little bit politically motivated as well. So, I think that this really is a waste of time for the council.
Thank you. Roll call?
Hold on.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Madam Chair, just a quick statement. I certainly don't like to do this, and I'm not I'm not doing this personally at all. It's just something that I feel that it's necessary to do. The Ethics Commission put this forth. They have their respective procedures they have to follow. We have to follow. If we don't have the ethics, let's get rid of it. I don't want to do this at all. Yeah. But it is what it is. That's my opinion.
My comment is this, and I agree with Mr. Perry. It should not be personal. And last year, I ran for this office. I campaigned pretty much for 10 months. And every speaking engagement I went to, I spoke about restoring election integrity in the county. And that was our mantra on our campaign cards in large letters, restore election integrity. And many people, it reverberated with many constituents, not the specific issue, but that was my position. And I think that the subject person here had ample time and ample counsel to not proceed in the direction that he did. But he chose to anyway. It would be more understandable if it was an inadvertent error or accidental, or he didn't have advice or counsel. But I ran on restoring election integrity, and that's my position. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I ran with Brian Thornton on the kind of that same issue. But I disagree with Mr. Thornton, because then I think we're looking at selective enforcement here. And I find it hard to believe that a lot of people in this county are as pure as the driven snow. So with that being said, I don't think you can pick and choose your fights in this regard. So that's why I'm against it.
Any other comments from council members? All right, roll call, Ms. Lawrence?
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yeah.
Mr. Wilovich,
No.
Mr. LaScavitch,
No.
Mr. Lombardo,
No.
Ms. McDermott,
No.
Mr. McGinley, I think we lost him here. He's off. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
No.
Mr. Schnee.
Yes.
3 yes. 5 no.
3 yes.
3 yes and 5 no.
5 no.
Fails.
Motion fails. Number 7, nominations and appointments of authorities. We have the Flood Protection Authority. Do I have a motion to open nominations?
So moved, Wilovich.
Second, Lombardo.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, nominations are open.
Nominate Dominic Nuzzo.
Second.
Do we have a motion to close nominations? Motion to close nominations.
Second.
All in favor?
Who was the second? Mr. Schnee?
Yes. Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion, nominations are closed. Okay, so now we need a motion to appoint Mr. Dominic Januzzi.
So move, Thornton.
Second, Lombardo.
Roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
9 yes.
Motion passes. Before we move on to public comment on non-agenda items, Attorney DeLuca, can you comment on our executive session?
Yes, council met in executive session from 5 PM until approximately 5:30. Received a report from outside counsel on the matter of Judicial Watch versus Luzerne County et al. Case number 1:20 CV 708.
Thank you. We have public comment on non-agenda items. I have Mr. Knapp.
Thank you for giving me a chance to speak again, 3 minutes that I have to speak. I would like to give my support behind the American Rescue Plan for Agenda 8 regarding the flood protection. This authority, this is, I think, an absolute necessity. I was reading some of the reports, and some of the equipment and its mechanical features date back to 1940. Unfortunately, the taxes that were brought in for the past years for the flood protection authority, that I guess they didn't make the cut to keep everything pre-maintenance. So it's a cloud in regards to COVID, but the money that's coming in from it, it's a silver lining. And for I believe it's 100,000 dwellings or residents in the path of the possible flooding zone plain. This is, I think, an absolute necessity and an investment, as well for Agenda 9 and Northeast Pennsylvania Land Bank. 2 years ago, I brought to council a list of petition from people in the county who have in their neighborhoods overwhelming amount of blighted properties. And if the American Rescue monies can be used to restore some of these homes, make them livable, to bring them back onto the tax base, that's something that would benefit all of us. And we're being inundated by these properties. So I think the American Rescue Plan money would be put to good use in that respect. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Mr. Newman, did you have Non-agenda items?
I apologize, I have to ask, are we up to the work session?
We're not on the work session yet. Right now, we're on the end of the voting session. Comments on non-agenda items.
No, I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Griffith, you have it marked. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, please.
Sure.
First of all, as I stated in our previous remarks about section 217 of the charter, Mr. Perry, I'm disappointed that you didn't read that section of the charter to know that that censure does not apply. I commend Councilperson Radel and McDermott for actually taking the courage to do the right thing here. Very disappointed in Mr. Thorpe. The charter clearly does not allow that. So now everybody's open for violating the charter to be censored and paying a fine. Starting with Mr. McGinley for not allowing the council clerk to do the codification. Somebody needs to file an ethics violation of the violation of the charter and make him pay a fine and censor him. Because that was the finding that was made by the ACE Commission. The findings of the ACE Commission was that Mr. Urban violated the charter and must pay a fine of $100 to be censored. Didn't say anything about him interfering with the executive branch. So just so council knows, you just let yourself wide open to make sure you find everybody who violates the charter from now on $100 and censor because you don't want to read the charter. Section number on the work session, I'll finish up with the resolution for the taxpayers, tax collection. Just clean up on aisle 4 for the Office of Law. They brought this resolution to council in February of 2021. Council voted for it with the understanding that it was a good resolution, when in fact it was not. And now it's being brought to this council to be cleaned up. Yet you guys don't need your own solicitor, really. So I guess the new revised version that the solicitor's office has brought to you is a good version, as opposed to the one they gave us in 2021. God bless you. I think we need our own solicitor. This council needs to do what they need to do to have their own solicitor. This is silliness. You're going to adopt another resolution for tax collectors to follow based on the Office of Law's bad resolution that they drafted. Clearly, they drafted it in February. We had nothing to do with it. But the ordinance we drafted or that Mr. Urban brought for the question on the ballot, that was scrutinized beyond comprehension. Oh, we got to dot this I and we got to cross that T. But the Office of Law didn't cross no T's and did not dot any I's in 2021 on that resolution. Shame on the Office of Law to put this council in that position. You need your own solicitor, clearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Any other members of the public have comments on non-agenda items?
Madam Chair, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Mr. Rabel, give us 1 second. Mr.
Sure.
Fitzgerald beat you to it.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Rabo.
no problem.
Sorry. I'm shocked. I understand you all have your reasons. We all have different people and about Mr. Urban. And being a Christian, I think that, sometimes we need to look at, or even with Mr. McGinley, right? I think that we should all learn from, forgive, and move on. I think that you guys are the new people and the old people here can work together. I want to help you. I don't want to be up here. I really want to go home to my kids and not be here on Tuesday like you guys. I really want to thank you. I was very worried about who you were going to try to get as a manager. I thought the fix was going to be in. But after hearing from you two gentlemen, I think you're going to do your due diligence. I pray that, like I said, you get a fiscal conservative. I hope.
Mr. Fitzgerald, please address council or the manager.
Okay. Well, I thank you for hiring them. And then the other thing is, Ms. Radel, I actually want to give you the floor a little bit because a lot of stuff has been commented about Sunday, your engagement here. And I know that, I don't know if you have any regrets. I saw that there was no mask and all that. And I don't know if you got a permit or anything like that. And we've been seeing a lot of stuff on Facebook and all that stuff. So I'm just wondering, I congratulate you. I wish many years of happiness, many kids, happy life. But I don't think that just like people don't like Mr. Urban made it that something, Mr. McGinley, I don't think that was the smartest decision you could have done being the chair of this. Do you have any comments on coming here Sunday?
I don't have any comments. Permission was sought to use the courthouse, obviously beyond my control, and that was granted. And thanks for your congratulations.
Okay, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. And as far as being a maskless, any comments on that, that in a place that had masks, everybody was maskless?
No one was in the courthouse. We weren't around anybody.
Wasn't it in a rotunda, the picture?
Yeah, the courthouse was not open to the, like, there were no people around us other than
Just the people.
just
that
our
were
group.
around you. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other comments from members of the public?
Madam Chair, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Go ahead, Mr. Rabo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to the funding for the land bank for Pittston, I would just like to remind council that we do have a blighted property committee that in Luzerne County that also needs to have funding for its operation for the county properties that the Luzerne County municipalities that are under our umbrella, like the boroughs and the townships. I would like to remind the council and the acting county manager that Pittston City received its own allocation of ARP money, as did Hazleton, as did Nanticoke, and as did Wilkes-Barre City. So I just wanted to remind you that I would like it if you would consider the blighted committee, as well as if you're gonna consider Pittston, then Hazleton's land bank has to be considered in the same light and same respect. Just wanted to put that out there. Also, with respect to the removal of public comment, I would like to remind council, in addition to what I submitted on the Office of Open Records website, the definition of a meeting is the law defines a meeting as any prearranged gathering of an agency which is attended or participated by a quorum of the members of the agency held for the purpose of deliberating agency business or taking official action. So by that definition, under the Office of Open Records, a work session is by definition a meeting and therefore must be allowed public comment. So I just wanted to remind the Office of Law, Solicitor DeLuca and Solicitor Lepsansky, that under the Office of Open Records, the work session is by definition a public meeting, and that therefore public comment is supposed to be allowed. As for the other things, I will wait till the end of the work session. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rabo. And council got your email attachment with the links as well. I have one thing to add. We have received an email from Michael Reich, supervisor in Butler Township. He asked that this be read as a non-agenda item during the voting session. Their statement is this: just days ago, Butler Township supervisors learned of the federal government's plan to house Afghan refugees on county-owned land leased by the Job Corps in our township. Our residents are concerned with this development, and supervisors share those concerns. We are very frustrated by the complete lack of transparency in this process. The township did not approve this and had no advance notice, and despite our best efforts to gather information over the last week, we still have very few answers. We do not know how many refugees are coming or when they will arrive. Most importantly, we don't know if they have been thoroughly vetted. Our priority is the safety and well-being of our citizens, and we cannot ensure that until we get more answers. Any assistance that county council can offer in helping us obtain more information on this matter would be greatly appreciated. Do any other members of the public have comments on non-agenda items?
I have one comment, later here. I'd like to thank Mr. Hackett and Mr. Morelli and the rest of the committee. Talking about being away from your family for hours, and it's that you volunteered for this, and people of your caliber that are on that committee, I applaud you and thank you very much for all the hard work you're doing on behalf of county council and the residents that you represent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sheen. Mr. Garcia.
Back to Ms. Radel and Mr. Vogt. It's just a perfect couple. I know both of you personally, and again, many years of happiness and everything else. You truly are a perfect couple together. Our prayers and love are with you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheen. Mr. Dortal.
I want to thank you guys once again, guys and girls, for giving me the opportunity as the president of the People's Committee, the City of Wilkes-Barre. Thank you. And to my fellow citizen who is present, and also to those who are listening on the air, we have an issue with the illegal immigrant in our county. My story is no different from the story of your great-grandparents or your grandparents who migrate from the land they were born into our great nation, the United States of America. I came into our nation at a young boy, at a young age, due to 14 years of civil war. It took us 2 weeks to cross at night to the neighboring country, Ivory Coast, to get on the bus to go through the immigration process in Ghana. I was in the refugee camp. Immigration could not take place into Liberia due to the chaos of war-torn nation. And Liberia is the oldest republic of Africa and the closest nation to the United States than any other African nation. We have a problem with the illegal immigrants, undocumented, military-aged male coming to our valley without the consent or the approval of the people who elect each and every individual. As I said, where is McGinley? He should be here.
I'll talk to you in a minute.
Relax.
No.
Don't push the panic button.
No, I just want to talk to you in a minute.
McGinley, Kokomo, and Ms. McDermott.
Mr. Dorto, you cannot address council members individually.
You're part of the board. At what point, or who knew
Thank
getting
you.
these people out?
Thank you, Mr. Dorto. Any other members of the public? Mr. Dorto, you get 3 minutes. You can have a seat.
I
Please be
fully
respectful.
understand. Well, I'll surely be done, because we want to know. The people of Luzerne County want to know.
Mr. Dorto, 3
No,
minutes.
we
I
want
apologize.
to know the answer. We have to
Mr.
know.
Dorto, please have a seat.
All right.
Any other members of the public? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, meeting adjourned. We'll begin the work session at 7:05.
I was pleased when I did it now. And it's cold out. I thought it was gonna be warmer today.
It wasn't.
I was disappointed. I was hoping more of the ice would melt off the sidewalk.
Yes.
It was terrible.
Yes, get into my county email. Yeah. Sharon, is your, copy machine, you can scan it, how many names you can scan it to? Okay, just scan it. Yeah.
The ordinance.
Yes.
All right, it's 7:05. We'll call the work session to order. We already did the pledge and a moment of silence. A roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. Lescavage.
Here.
Mr. Lombardo.
Here.
Ms. McDermott. Here. Mr. McGinley is absent. Mr. Perry.
Here.
Mr. Sneak.
Present.
Mr. Thornton.
Present.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Willoughby.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
9 present.
Additions or deletions?
I'd like to make a motion to delete number 11. Moving to public comment.
Okay, does he have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call on removing.
Well, I just want to talk a little bit about it.
We some discussion on it.
Well, I just want to make a discussion why I'm making the motion. I mean, it's written right on that board. I stood at that, I don't know how many of you have stood at that podium and speak, but I think removing a session from giving the opportunity to the public to speak is an aberration to what's written on the wall. We're here to represent them. Their voices should be heard. And I think taking away 3 more minutes is just harming the public even more.
Thank you, Mr. Willoughby. We have a motion and a second to remove agenda item number 11. We have a roll call on removing 11.
Mr. Lescavage.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
No.
Ms. McDermott.
No.
Mr. Perry.
No.
Mr. Sneak.
No.
Mr. Thornton.
No.
Mr. Urban.
Yeah.
Yes, you said?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Mr. Willoughby.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
No.
6 no, 3 yes.
11 stays. Also, I believe we need to take off the King's pilot as they're not presenting today. We have a motion to remove that.
So moved. Second.
Roll call on removing item 3.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Ms. Radel, excuse me, Mr. Sneak.
Yes.
Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby.
Yes.
Mr. Lescavage.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay, item 3 is removed. Do I have a motion to adopt the work session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, it is adopted. So we have number 1, receive and discuss division reports for January 2022.
Thank you, council. Once again, I'm very proud of all the work that the county staff has done in the last month. And as usual, if you have any questions or concerns, please just ask.
Thank you. Number 2, discussion regarding resolution amending resolution 2021-52, setting compensation rates for municipal elected tax collectors and home rule municipalities for the billing and collecting of Luzerne County taxes effective January 1, 2022.
Thank you, council. Today we will hear from Brian Specs on this issue.
Thank you. So in front of you is item 2 related to the tax collectors. I wanted to be brief, but I will give time if council needs other information before this moves to a voting session. The last agreement before this, 2017-26, had 5 sections. this original agreement that was approved by the last council in 2020 had 8 sections. The sections that were added were section 6 regarding a deputy, section 7 regarding a separate account, and section 8 saying the cost of the deputy shouldn't be picked up by the county. So I really didn't have an issue with section 8. I don't think the tax collectors do. I believe you got some emails today, and it's really regarding 6 and 7. To the point before, I think $1,000 fine is punitive. I understand it's in a currently passed document by a council, but we're working with municipalities. At one point, we had 3 separate bills. Today, we have 2 bills. School is on its own, but Muni and county is combined. And one of the things that home rule has done is get some cooperation. So we get the tax bill and bill the municipality their fair share. So having $1,000 punitive fine when the tax collectors are turning in money, I don't personally like. I know the tax collectors don't like it. One of the other things is about an alternate signer. Just so council's aware, we're regulating the tax collectors who are third party, but they're using other third parties. So every bank doesn't have the same policy on adding a signer. To some banks, it may be no issue. To another bank, it may be a huge issue. So it's one of those things that it's not one bonding company or one bank. So each one of them have separate policies. In part 7, we talk about a separate bank account for Luzerne County. I had no problem with not using the social security number. Whether they use the county or the muni EIN isn't an issue to me. I know Mr. Griffith will speak on this, but I understand we're at a county meeting, but we're really managing the one-offs if a collector gets sick or incapacitated. Not that it doesn't happen, but why would we add something instead of leaving it as it was in the prior resolution where none of this language is there? As long as they don't have a social security number, we're not punitively fining them, and we have the other 5 sections, I think it was fine as it was. I will agree that Mr. Griffith brought this up and did move the date from February 1st. He could have started enforcing this as February 1st and he brought it to council, and I appreciate that, and I'd like to thank him for that. But I would say that council should really get rid of everything after section 5. That would be from the administration side. I'll let Mr. Griffith speak. I'm just saying, take it back to 2017-26, which is the format of 5 items, which address the cost and some of the other things. 6 and 7 are really the ones that you'll hear from tax collectors about. And I think Mr. Griffith also had a good point. Administration nor the clerk was directed to pass this out to the tax collectors. It was posted on the website. It was voted on at a public meeting, but there was really no discussion on who's going to enforce it, who's sending it out. So I think as we're at the point now of getting this year's tax bills out and getting the bonding ready, to do it this February would have been horrendous, to say the least. So I appreciate the move to June 1st that Mr. Griffith suggests. Honestly think that February is a better time frame. Not the 4 months isn't enough, but as I said, the bonding goes out in January or February. So really, if you're not going to do it for this February, I think it should be next February. But that's really the administration's position on this. The tax collectors in the past, 6-7 years ago, voluntarily, even when they didn't hit their bonding limit, as a group, gave money twice a month instead of once a month when the county had cash flow problems. So just as we spoke before, I think we don't want to be punitive. I think we want to work together. And we have an agreement with the tax collectors. I think those last sections after 5 really aren't needed.
Thank you, Mr. Swett. Mr. Griffith, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, if I could, thank you. First of all, I thank you for the corrections in the resolution where it actually puts language in as to who they're responsible to. In that one section where it says the tax collection processor and the treasurer's office are responsible for invoicing, that's a good thing to put in there. So that way the tax collectors know who's going to send them the bill, who's going to be responsible to make sure that they pay it. So that's a good thing to put in the resolution. The question that I have in on the deputy section, and I think the issue behind that when Mr. Pedri brought that to the council back in February of last year was the ability for us to have somebody on the account, ability of a tax collector who was incapacitated. It was not for the ability for a deputy tax collector to have carte blanche access to their bank accounts, which I think is kind of the misunderstanding that a lot of tax collectors have. Clearly, it says in the statute, section 72, and I'll take a second just to read the section. It says, at a minimum, at the beginning of a tax collector's term, a tax collector shall, not may, it says shall, with the approval of a municipality for which a tax collector was elected, and the tax collector surety appoint an individual as a deputy tax collector who shall collect and settle taxes during any incapacitation of the tax collector. The deputy tax collector shall collect and settle taxes for the duration of tax collector's incapacitation, unless the taxing district determines action under section 402 or 4244 is necessary. That ability to put a deputy in there was strictly for incapacitation. It was not somebody who had access to the account. It wasn't somebody who collects the taxes when the tax collector's away. It was for none of that. And I think that was what Mr. Pedri's intention was when he brought that to council back. I'm not speaking for Mr. Pedri, but I'm certain that that was the issue that we had back. And I'm sure Mr. Slocum can speak to the fact that we had an issue with a tax collector we couldn't get the money from because they either passed away in office and they had a devil of a time getting our money out of that bank account. That's exactly what the state statute addresses for this council to do, is to put a deputy in there in the event of an incapacitation. And that's the only provision that the state law allows for a deputy. So that's why I thought it was important to keep that section in there. I understand the tax collectors upset about signatories, but we need to stress to the tax collectors in case they become incapacitated. The ability for the county to have their EIN number on there is critical as far as I'm concerned, because it's our money that they're holding. We have no ownership to that account. If it's the municipality has an EIN number on it and they hold the municipality's money, the county should have the same option to have their EIN number on there as well. So the county has ownership of that account in the event that we have to access that account in any way. We could go to the bank and use that ownership as leverage to get into that account and get our money if something happens. And that's what I think was the whole reason behind that. The last thing that I will address is be it further resolved, is it says in there that home rule community municipalities bonding in relation to the collection of any taxes is their responsibility. They don't get a third pay. I think that's a violation of Title 72. It says clearly the tax collectors bond is paid for by the county, the municipality, and the school district. Home rule municipalities are not exempt from that rule, I don't believe. But that's something for the Office of Law to determine. That I think home rule communities should not be responsible to pay their bond. If we're doing it for all the other tax collectors, we should do it for home rule as well. And I think that's the only questions that I have other than what Mr. Sweats addressed. I think that certainly the interest, having separate bank accounts is troublesome and almost impossible. I think that language is definitely a problem in the resolution, because in order for them to do that, they would actually have to cash the check that they're given, separate the money, separate the penalty and all that, put it in separate bank accounts. It's an awful lot of work for a tax collector. And unless we're going to send them separate bills, I don't think it's doable. So that language absolutely should be revised in the resolution. So those are the only points that I had that I sent to the Office of Law for review. And I think that they did a pretty good job of putting in the corrections that they feel is necessary. I think the word can instead of will should not be in there. I think it should be will. But that's something for council to decide. Okay, do you have anything else for me, Mr.?
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. I think you're good unless anybody has any questions for him. No, thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Mr. Sweat, did you have anything else to add, or are you okay with this?
No, I think I'm okay. Obviously, whatever, if this version or another version goes in front of council as it moves forward, I may have some comments. But I think we're all relatively in the same place. It's just how it's written, and it definitely needs to be amended. So let's amend it once and get it correct.
All right, thank you. Mr.
Just a quick question on like the penalty sections there. I mean, does the state statute define the penalties, and can we look at see what the state statute says regarding some of the penalties versus what we're putting in this particular resolution and see if they coincide or match?
We can get that information.
Yeah, because I'm looking at like 72, 551139 that says defaulting tax collectors and doesn't have a penalty. So, I mean, obviously, if they don't transfer any money over here, it's a crime, not exceeding 5 years, or pay a fine not exceeding 5,000, or both discretion of the court. So I want to make sure that we're lined up, and it might be unnecessary to put a penalty in the resolution if the state law already has it in there.
We can get that information.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, could I be heard on this? This is,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Goldberg.
yeah, the Office of Law, I think I heard Mr. Griffith say earlier that the Office of Law had written this up and made all the mistakes that are, for some reason, for whatever reason, are needing to be corrected now. That's just absolutely not true. And just so everyone understands, the scope of our representation and what we're supposed to do when a member of county council, a committee of county council, or the county manager ask us to draft an ordinance, it's merely to take whatever provisions are being suggested by that party, making sure that it's put into a form that is compliant with law. We have absolutely no ability to go through every department, make sure that the ordinance is capable of being executed. Our job is to make sure it complies with whatever legal constraints there are. Most of the changes that are required to be made now were because a previous county council had made those changes at the public meeting. And I believe, to Mr. Urban's question, I believe the penalty provision may have been one of those that was put in addition to the requirements for the deputy, for the other accounts. I don't believe any of those provisions were in the previous ordinances. Those were all done at council's request. So the fact that now, for some reason, the executive branch is unable to actually comply with that ordinance, that has nothing to do with the Office of Law. Those were all changes that were made by council. We don't make any policy decisions or policy changes. We review it for legal sufficiency, and that's it. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. We had nothing to do with any of those changes that were made that need to be changed again, apparently. And actually, we speak not at all to whether or not the changes that are being made now could end up costing tax collectors and or the county, because I understand the bonding will end up being a substantial amount of money. We don't make any judgments on those things. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on agenda item number 2? All right, we're
I would agree with administration in striking 6, 7, and 8 going forward. I think the changes were made and had to be made in the first 5. Mr. Sweat's recommended striking 6, 7, and 8.
Okay.
And I would go with his recommendation.
Number 4, discussion regarding the ordinance amending the 2022 fiscal year budget. Well, 4 and 5 are both amending the 2022 fiscal year budget, convention of visitors, and ERA. Was Mr. Sweat gonna-
Mr. Sweat will speak to those.
Did you want to speak to those 2 items?
Sure, I will. So as I said before, at public meetings, we will have quite a few budget amendments and budget changes, just like everyone else. So the first one is for convention and visitors. They've already received this grant for $250,000. County is in the process of getting a bank account to get this out of the general fund. In speaking with Mr. Stout, they're looking at using $100,000 of the $250,000 this year. As I said last time, when we end up redoing the state closure grant, whether it's internal or external, that's the intent today. If we put the whole $250 and he doesn't use it all, we have to move it. His intent and that office is intended to use 100,000. So we put the accounts for the 100,000. The information is spelled out in the submittal. We will get any subsequent information. I believe one was a sign and there's some other contractual. Mr. Stout would have it, or I can get it for the next meeting. But they would use 100,000 of the 250 this year is their intent. Any questions on that before I move on to the other one?
Doesn't look like it. Go ahead.
Okay, so the second one is to do with community development funds. So we have that. They received additional funding. We have the accounts there. So again, it would go from work session to be introduced and then finally adopted by council. Let me see if I have that agenda submittal. Give me 1 second. So it was ERA in the submittal. It said to change it to ARP. So it's the same. We're asking to use the same department number for ARP for Mr. Riley. He received more money than was in the budget. At the time the budget was presented, they did not know what they were going to get. So they will have additional revenue and expenditure authority. And that is what is in item number 5.
Thank you. No one has any questions? We'll move on to number 6, discussion regarding the small business program. Ms. Copeland, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, thank you very much, Council. When I originally introduced the administration's suggestions as to the use of the ARP monies, we did highlight an infusion of monies for small businesses. We came to the conclusion that $20 million would be necessary in part because the small businesses were suffering as a result of closures. And then the Omicron variant caused additional upheaval for small businesses. We've made some changes from our initial suggestion. We removed associating monies with small businesses and nonprofits. And we've also included the Pittston Chamber to be part of the group that will be moderating the monies. Today we have Andy Riley and John Augustine to speak to particulars about the process. And if there are any questions, we'll be very happy to answer them this evening and as we go through the weeks until the vote. So Andy Riley is on the line.
Good evening, council members. As Ramilda said, I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Community Development, and we believe that utilizing ARP funding for small businesses in our county is absolutely necessary because we've heard from our small businesses in several ways. We've heard from them through a survey conducted by Penns Northeast, which is the regional economic development group here in the county that Luzerne County is a founding member of. We've heard from them through our other economic development partners, such as the Pittston Chamber, the Hazleton Chamber, the Wilkes-Barre Chamber. We also hear from them as we travel around the country, or I'm sorry, the county, and patronize some of their establishments. And basically what we hear is that they continue to struggle with staffing crisis, supply chain issues, the rising cost of supplies. They're all things that they're dealing with on a daily basis. And we believe that with the help of our economic development partners, a small business program can be administered that's not a handout to small businesses, but really a hand up to get them back on their feet and hopefully make them more resilient for the future. That is really our goal through this program. So with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to John Augustine from Penns Northeast to discuss some of the previous programs from last year that were funded through the CARES Act and how they were successfully administered and basically what that means for this program going forward. John?
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, thank you, Andy. Madam Chair and Council, good evening. As Andy said, we continue to hear, and I think everyone in the room continues to hear how the virus is affecting our small businesses. In our 2019 census, we have almost 6,000 businesses under 19 employees in Luzerne County. That is clearly the backbone of our economic structure, are these small businesses. When the programs like CARES, PPP, EIDL, and others were out there, they were all out there at the same time. So there was various programs that businesses could pick from and apply to. However, unfortunately, a lot of them had time constraints, and we fully believe why Congress and the president put specific language in the American Rescue Plan Act for, again, verbatim to help small businesses and communities across the country. With the very successful CARES program, we helped over 680 small businesses in Luzerne County receive money. It was a very fair and equitable process. Through the CHIRP program, we helped over 200 small businesses, and no one thought, fast forward almost a year later, that there would be 2 more strains of this virus continuing to affect small businesses with no real financial assistance available. We did, as Andy mentioned, a survey where over 400 small businesses telling us exactly what their needs are, that they continue to have those. And as Andy said, it's not a handout versus a hand up. In partnership with our economic development agencies, the Chambers of Commerce, the Small Business Development Center. It's not just a grant, here you go. It's, let us make sure that we're helping you in the best way possible. So we have proposed, in conversation with council, with county management, following the recommendation that this is a good amount that will absolutely make a difference in every corner of Luzerne County.
Thank you, Mr. Augustine. Does anybody have any questions regarding small
Madam
business?
Chair?
Yep.
After reviewing everything, the application process, I was quite impressed with it. Since we're doling out $20 million, I was really concerned about what does it take to fill this application out? And how do they go about doing it? And I was very fortunate. I was going to reach out to somebody with boots on the ground that actually do this. Mary Malone called me from Hazleton Chamber. She got me before I got her, and we discussed this whole thing. And she was very, very upfront about everything. I asked her questions, pretty pertinent questions. How do they know about this? How do businesses know what to do? And she went through the process, what they do in Hazleton. It was pretty impressive. I said, do you help them? Do you help the small business? She said, we certainly do. With language barriers, we have people that help us to get the small business owners to get this material filled out. And I also asked her a question that's on my mind. How do we know, how do we safeguard the money that we're giving out? And if you go through this, it's a lot of safeguards here. I mean, it's very, very difficult. And only layman do to get money that you don't necessarily need or deserve. And it was well put together. She was very, very helpful and very cognizant of the fact that they need this money so badly. And it was good to see somebody and talk to somebody with boots on the ground that actually do this.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
I just wanted to echo those sentiments from Mr. Perry as well. I was very impressed with the application process. And I also really wanted to thank the administration, particularly Manager Kokomo, for working with us council members that had some concerns about this in the first place. We really like how it's 19 or less employees. And, even talking with some people that were involved in downtown partnerships and that manage businesses, we know, and we were even joking before when we were in executive session about the price of chicken and how expensive they are. And that's not lost on any of us and how expensive things have gotten. And we know we have a lot of friends that own businesses that are struggling right now. So I'm really happy with this now, the way that it is, and I'm 100% for it.
Madam Chair,
Mr. LaScavitch?
My only concern is Governor Wolf last Friday had indicated that he was going to release $1.7 billion for the state of Pennsylvania for this same thing. And also healthcare. So would not want to see us spend $20 million to repeat a process that may take place. So I'd like to see us hold off a little while to make sure that this county doesn't need anything, that we're going to have to go back to the taxpayers and tell them that we made a mistake. And I'm not opposed to helping small business at all. But it's my understanding, because I'm going to tell you that probably 90% of my customers are small business under 20 employees. Their biggest gripe is they don't have loss of business. What they have is loss of employees. I have one gentleman that could do another $500,000 in business. He can't get the employees to do that business. So there's other issues going on, and it's not all about somebody's not going to go into a store. And the other thing I think we have to realize is just last weekend, 4 went out for breakfast. It was $54, nothing special. Bacon, eggs, and home fries, toast, coffee. I think the days of a family of 4 going to go out every Saturday for breakfast isn't going to happen. They're going to reduce that back to once a month. So my point is, it's not the pandemic that caused that loss of business. It's the fact that the inflation's through the roof. Everybody knows it on every single item they buy. So people are going to cut back. That's just the way it's going to be. So going forward, no matter what you do, you could throw 40, 50, $80 million at this. It's not going to change the dynamics of what's happening in this country right now. And I'm pretty sure that's a fact because I see it every day. That's all I like to say.
Good point. Thank you, Mr. LaScavitch. Mr. Urban?
I mean, I do have to echo some of those sentiments too. I mean, from a perspective of going out into the community, it is very much an environment where it's hard to get employees, good employees. And I think a lot of places could do a lot more business with employees. The inflation's through the roof. The economics right now, I mean, we're not even talking about $15 an hour jobs anymore because most companies are well north of that now, $21, $23 an hour. My concern with this too is what's the maximum administrative cost on giving out this 20 million? Is it 10%? Well, what's the percentage?
Andy, John?
It's 4%. The several of the programs administered by the city of Wilkes-Barre, they were utilizing around 9%. The industry standard and what we were charged by one outside or one of the outside agencies, Penn's Northeast, utilized last year was 5%. This will be 4%.
So it's 4% for everybody on this list, because I mean, even then, that's still $800,000 that could be, if you really haven't hurt those particular chambers, those particular individuals should reduce that percentage down to maybe 0.5% because you're talking $800,000 out of 20 million. That 800,000 could support more businesses. Or more small businesses.
If I could interject, doing this for 1% is near impossible. If you imagine the amount of applicants, again, with multiple programs under CARES, we had over 1,200 applications. You need to help the minority population with language barriers. The application needs to be built on the back end, and every single one of those applications need to be underwritten individually to make sure that there is no fraud. It's industry across the country averages 5%.
I mean, what's the average salaries of the individuals that are doing all this work though? And that's my question is like, could we develop a program internally where we give out the money instead of these other individuals? I mean, a lot of this stuff can be done online in today's day and age and technology. And we also cross-check things with, from a fraud perspective, pull somebody's EIN number or whatever for a business and look at the legitimacy of the business. I mean, it shouldn't, I mean, I understand that there's language barriers, but you guys do this all day, every day anyway. And so you want to add another 4% of the cost on here. I think if you can drive that number down, I would support it a little bit more, but $800,000 out of 20 million is still quite a considerable amount, considering that you all have a job every day that you do each day in and day out. I respect that. I mean, granted, it's a few more applications, but I think, we're all struggling, but I think you can do it for a little bit less. knowing that the people at those chambers make a lot of money.
Thank you. Any other members of council have comments?
Just a comment regarding, and this is not a comment in favor of or against this discussion topic. There is a disturbing trend that emerged after the pandemic, and it was this. Most of the restaurants, cafes, and pizza joints around the country that operate in the cities and towns relied heavily on the lunch crowds. And through the pandemic, many companies and corporations turned their workforce out to work from home virtually. And they said that trend is likely to continue indefinitely. And many of the restaurant owners have stated there's nothing they can do about it, but society has changed their ways of doing their work. And so therefore, the big crowds they used to have at lunchtime in the cities, like downtown Wilkes-Barre, Hazleton, they're probably never going to return because a lot of those people aren't downtown anymore working. So that's not really a comment for or against this proposal here, but I don't know what the solution would be to that.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Any other council members?
I just want to quickly piggyback off of that. To like, considering that I'm in the food business during the day and even in the evening at a different location, I do see places like going automated and with the DoorDashes, Grubhubs in the world. I see the restaurant businesses needing to evolve into technologies as well. And maybe we need to maybe educate them that there's other means of getting food delivered to people's homes, because it is true that more people are working remotely. And you could be working remotely here in Luzerne County, but working for a totally different company out of state. And that is happening in the corporate world. I know that for a fact in my own place. One person that used to work with me directly in Pittston now works back for the company, but working out of a Boston location. So, and does not travel out anymore to eat and things like that. So I should relate to that. I would say, with the DoorDashes, Grubhubs, and all of those food delivery services, I can see that becoming, right now, it's probably about 10% of the businesses of certain fast food restaurants in the area. I can see that going 15 or 20% in the near future. So, maybe we also need to think about retooling the way we serve people in general.
Thank you, Mr. Urban. Any other council members? If not, moving on to agenda item number 7, discussion regarding the county manager interview timeline. Council members, you got it was in your voting session packet. It was a letter from Chris Hackett. They have an idea of when they want to interview, but I think council needs to discuss our interview timeline, so we could either match that up or give a timeline to these candidates. I do think we also need time to, get our questions together, decide how we want to do this. So I just wanted to have an open discussion about what you as council members think that the timeline needs to be for this. And then Mr. Hackett could give his idea of what the search committee is thinking with their interview schedule. Yeah.
So once the search committee releases the number of names, whatever it is, town council, and then we're tasked with the interview process. And right now, I think you're looking at, was it sometime around this? When was it?
So the search committee wants to interview, I believe, on the 21st.
Right.
They were offering if council wanted to interview on the 22nd. This way they were only flying these candidates in one time.
But I'm not in favor of that, only because it just really rushes the process through for such an important position. And that's just me. But I'm wondering what happens after county council interviews these candidates, whenever that is. Does county council gather again together collectively to ask questions about these, or do we just show up at the next public meeting and vote on the candidates?
So these are things we could discuss, and that's why I agree that the 22nd might be rushed, because council right now we have the process we use to fill seats in the past, but we don't have a process. We don't have a timeline for our process for filling this vacancy.
And I know in the past they used a rating system.
Yes.
Are we considering anything like that? Or does anybody have any thoughts? You people were here a lot longer than
I wasn't here for that, you know.
Okay.
That's something we have to discuss. That's something we have to put together, you know,
Right,
and
and
that's
then-
why we cannot, in no way, shape or form, have them stay here. And we interview them real quickly. That's impossible in my mind.
I agree.
I do think that we, we were originally aiming for April, and I think we should move a little bit more quickly than that. So I'm open to that. But I just don't think council's prepared to interview on the 22nd. So that's what we have to see, is if the county manager search committee is definitely interviewing on the 21st, then it might just be that interview rather than them staying for a second one. Or if the search committee, I think we need the names, and then we'll do our interview is what I'm leaning towards, but I just want to hear from all of you, what you guys think.
Question, what if Mr. Hackett were to move his date back further? And
Mr.
then we
Hackett-
would interview the following day,
Yeah, do you
where we
want to,
could get questions up to that date.
right, do you want
Well, I just
to?
have one more thing.
Sure, go ahead.
Also, the 22nd wouldn't make any sense. We don't even have our council member present for the interviews. That's going to replace Walter.
Right,
Because
well-
we're choosing that night, but we would not have a person there present to interview them on the 22nd before the council meeting that night.
Well, we would interview at the council meeting, but that person who takes the seat would need to be sworn,
Okay, so the swearing in would take place before the interview.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is they'd be here, but they wouldn't be sworn in.
Okay, well, I don't think that's very fair. That's just from my personal opinion.
No, you don't have to get defensive. I'm
No,
just
no, I know.
opening the conversation up. I want to hear everybody's opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Hackett, do you want to give us some scenarios, like where you guys are at?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So I think the first comment I'd like to make is that in today's competitive employment market, I think moving as quickly but in a qualitative way as we can is really important. To give you some texture around this, through our process, we've already lost 3 candidates to other positions. So it's a competitive market. We want to, and that's one of the reasons we are trying to accelerate our process as much as we can. I don't disagree with council's viewpoint on not interviewing on the 22nd. I was trying to come up with, or committee was trying to come up with a creative approach that may save taxpayers money. But we are going to push forward at this stage. Our plan is to interview on the 22nd. We will then, our committee still has a lot of work to do before then. We conducted another phone screen today, collected more information. We're going to continue to work at our process, and we will interview on the 21st as our plan is today, and then we'll move as quickly thereafter as we can. But I think my colleague, Rick, had mentioned that to the extent that we can have a better sense as to what your schedule may look like, that would be helpful information for us to have.
I have a suggestion. Based on those comments, thank you, Mr. Hackett, for that. So they're doing their process on the 21st, and then we're having a public meeting here on the 22nd. I think from the candidate's point of view, to fly here on that Sunday or Monday, and then fly home and fly back in 2 or 3 days might be a little burdensome on them, because they have work where they're at and they have lives. So maybe the very next week, the 21st is a Monday, so the 28th is a Monday. Maybe they can come back then, that Monday, a week later, after you guys are finished with them. And then, rather than wait till the next public meeting in early March, I don't know if you guys could call a special meeting 2 days later, after the 28th, Monday would be March 2nd, a Wednesday or a Thursday. And then maybe at that public meeting, we would actually vote on someone. That way, we're not dragging these top candidates out for too long of a period. Like you said, we may lose another 1 or 2 quality people. So the interest of revenue, but like you said, qualitative.
And we were only trying to work around a Monday so that travel could be done on a Sunday, so it wouldn't be 3 days, it would be 2 days.
Right, and that's good logic, and the same would be true the next weekend.
Yeah, so I think that sounds.
Okay, how do the rest of the council members feel about the following week, or would you rather wait till the 8th when we have that other meeting at the first meeting of March?
excuse me, I would like to keep it moving a little bit faster. so,
Like what Brian suggested?
Yes.
Mr. Thornton, can you repeat exactly what you're suggesting for us to do? Are we voting on the manager on the 8th, or are we voting on the manager at a special meeting?
No, what I was suggesting is when they're done on the 21st, on a Monday, Mr. Hackett's group, the next night is the 22nd, which we can't really entertain anything that night, the county manager. And then I think it's unfair that later that week on that Wednesday or Thursday, which would be the 23rd, 24th, to fly these people back here that quickly, all in the same week. So I'm suggesting wait till that weekend, which is February 27th, to Sunday, flying them back into town. And then on Mondays, the 28th, actually interview them here. And then we can actually call a special meeting and vote on it that week, March 1st or 2nd. Or you guys, everybody could say wait till the 8th, another week out. I was just trying to make it.
Could we maybe do the,
I just, Attorney DeLuca or Attorney Lipsansky, did you want to comment on, so are we okay with scheduling special meetings? Like if we were to schedule a special meeting to interview on that following Monday, and then another special meeting to appoint the week after, do we see an issue with any of this?
You could, as long as we comply with the Sunshine Act with the advertising, you could advertise a special meeting for either general or a specific purpose, really, if you choose. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I think this also gives us time to, I believe, so once the search committee recommends the names, then our county HR is going to do the background check, so that gives us time as well. So if you could get us the names after your interview, before our interview, then we'll have them, an idea of that. I think that would be beneficial.
Actually, that's why I returned to the podium. I just wanted to mention that, as soon as we identify our candidates, we're going to ask the county HR group to do the background checks. That can take about a week. So I would really encourage us to have that information before we bring in final candidates for your interview. So that was the only point.
Thank you, Mr. Hackett.
And I think it's a good idea on Sunday to fly on Sunday.
Yeah.
Could we possibly, just as a suggestion, if, it'll take about a week from the 22nd to do the background checks, that would go to, the 28th or the 1st at the earliest, and could be more, possibly. Could we possibly have a special meeting on the Monday, the 7th, and then vote on it on the 8th?
Interview on the 7th, then vote on the 8th.
And then maybe have an executive session even on
I can't imagine 6-7 days is gonna make or break the whole situation.
because they'd still arrive on a Sunday and then they'd be there on Monday for a conversation.
Yeah. Mr. Morales, yeah.
If I may. Just curious, so what I'm hearing, are you just looking to get the names from us, interview, and then hire? Is that the process?
So that's why I'm not prepared for council to interview on the 22nd. So we have the process that has been followed in the past.
Yeah.
But like council has not discussed their process of if they want to use a rating system or how they want to do that.
So that's my point. That was my point before. Hey, listen, it's up to you however you want to do it. But just because we give you names doesn't mean, and I'm not trying to delay this, trust me, I'm not. But you have a process here. You're just going to do one interview and then hire. I don't know how much the public's going to say how much you did your homework too. There's a process, and I would go back, and I think the Times Leader wrote about what the past council did when they did it. It was pretty thorough. So you can do what you want, but again, there's two parts of this. We do the screening, you hire. So if you just want to do one interview, and you're fine with that, and then hire, then go for it. But again, you can go out and spend money just to fly them in and make it look good. But at the end of the day, you have to do some homework. You got to make the decision. You're the ones dealing with this person. So that was my point of understanding. So I have to come up here because it sounds like, well, let's just find a week later, we're going to interview and then we're going to hire them. Sounds pretty quick then. So not to say you can't do it, but think about it. Think about the process and what your role is. That's all.
Well, I'd like to tell you from my standpoint, I'm never gonna spend the county's money to fly somebody in to make it look good. That was like a bad sentence there. I didn't appreciate that.
Well, again, if you hire, if you're getting.
It may be that we don't like any of them, and you know what we say? Give us the next 5.
We can do that.
Exactly. So we don't have our mind made up on anything. So we have to, there's steps, right? So we're gonna take the proper steps.
Right.
We're not gonna rush through it, but we're not gonna wait 6 months because, like
I'm not saying
Mr.
that.
Hackett said, they're gonna go south on us.
Well, right, and again, I'm not saying to rush it, but you don't think that it just sounds to me like you're gonna get names and then interview and then vote.
Well,
pretty quick.
Mr. Morelli, I just, the language you're using, you're just gonna get names, but no.
You're gonna get
No, we're
the
gonna
names we give
get
you.
not names, we're gonna get 5
You're gonna get
really,
candidates.
maybe 5 really good candidates. Because I think you guys did a great job, and you would do a great job vetting these people. I don't know how many total came to you.
We're still working on it.
And how many discarded already, but there's probably a lot that you already said we're not gonna consider, because you guys did a very good job. So we rely on that, we rely on the search committee to do a very good job. Now, that doesn't mean we just haphazardly appoint somebody or hire somebody, but I get it, we're not just getting names, we're getting very good candidates.
And I guess you are, and I think you will. Again, we're not done, but my point is that I think you need to do a little more work as to what the interview is gonna be like, how much time you're gonna be going to, what the questions are gonna be. Again, do some discussions among each other. Again, as I said, this is about accountability. You have to hold us accountable. You gotta look and see who we interviewed, what we did, okay? I mean, trust me, I think we've done a great job. We've got a great committee, but you have a job, that's all I'm saying. So, don't rush into it. Make sure you're doing the right thing. Just think about it. That's what this is for, is just understanding the process. But again, I have to come up and speak because it sounded like, well, let's just quick get an interview and then let's find a date to vote on it. I would think there should be some time in between, but again, it's your choice.
Thank you, Mr. Morelli. And in council, we could essentially decide, they're interviewing on the 21st. We could decide if we want to interview on the 7th, but we also can decide when we want to vote on this. Like, we could see these candidates and decide that we do want a second interview. We want to bring one back or not the other, and I think that that's ultimately up to council.
I think this got a little diluted. I think all we're looking to do is set a timeline.
Right.
That's all we're looking to do.
I agree.
So if we don't have a timeline, this will drag on for another 3 months. So that's all I'm looking to do. Let's stick to a timeline. It doesn't, if we have enough time to do what we need to do, then I think we'll be fine.
If we interview on the 7th, us council body, and we plan on taking action on the 8th, we can always table that motion if we feel we have to re-interview someone, or we need to do a new search for other candidates. But we don't have to vote on it on the 8th.
I agree. We could interview on the 7th and decide that we don't want to vote on the 8th and set a special meeting for the 11th.
Right, or a week later, right?
I would prefer like probably the week before or week after that they're interviewing, just to move up the timeline a little bit. So then give us time for a week to decide, should we want to vote on the 8th? You have that whole week. If they do their diligence, I think Norton said their job is to vet candidates, and bring forward 3 to 5 very excellent names to us. They are the professionals. We were supposed to be out of this process up until the point of the names coming to us. I was on the first council when we hired Mr. Lawton. We did have like a packet of KSAs and things like that. You could have your own grading system. We probably pull the information from back in 2012 if it's still around somewhere. Someone should have it. But there was a rating scale when we hired him that was done. But it is their job to vet these individuals. They are supposed to bring 3 to 5 very excellent candidates to us to make our job a little bit easier. And then, we review the resumes and ask the questions that we want to ask. Hopefully be on the same page and have some type of KSA rating system. And then we can make that determination probably a week later at the voting meeting.
Can we?
If they're already going to do the HR background check ahead of time, then
Can we
we're not
start
gonna
the background check before the 21st?
No, so we spoke about this already. The county manager search committee, we don't want the liability on them for doing these background checks because there's a lot of liability that goes along with it. So once the names get to us, then they're public once they go to county council. So at that time, we will have our HR department do those. We had discussed it during the week with a few attorneys from the county, and that's just because of the liability with the background checks. It's better to.
And that could definitely take up to a week, but we don't know, right?
It can take, so if people have a lot of moves, it takes longer. If somebody's lived in the same place for 20 years, it's a lot easier. So it's really predicated upon how much movement there is and how much checking they need to do. But, and that's why I say a week. A week is kind of the long time period, but I'd rather not have 4 candidates that have background checks done and 1 that doesn't.
Right. Okay, so
we could take everybody's suggestions that we talked about today, or if you want to email them, we could get a timeline together and a process. I could send that out to council. We could just look at that at our next meeting, just to make sure we have everything.
Madam Chair, follow up on what Mr. Urban said. Could you maybe in the next 7 or 8 days get something out to council regarding a rating system, KSA rating system?
Yeah.
Just so we see it what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, we could get that to all of you.
Okay.
You guys can review that, and then we'll take a look at it and make sure everyone's okay with that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we have agenda item number 8, discussion regarding the flood protection authority request. I think we have Mr. Yanuzzi, Mr. Bellman here if they want to discuss that.
Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak here this evening. I'm John Mike with the Flood Protection Authority. Thank you for the vote of confidence at the previous meeting. Here tonight with me is also Christopher Bellman, the Executive Director, and Bill Hardwick, our Vice Chairman. Just a little bit of background. The Flood Protection Authority maintains and operates a very large storm water system that helps prevent flooding in Luzerne County. We provided a list of projects to county administration that we are working through the viability of them being an accepted use for the ARP funds. And we're going to be going through that list again with county administration over the next week. We believe that all these projects are needed. They're part of our master plan to help fortify the flood protection system to not only protect the residents of the Wyoming Valley, but also protect the entire tax base of Luzerne County. Do you have any questions for myself or anybody else that's here this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Yanuzzi. Mr. Urban?
Yeah, looking at this number, the 8 million, this was something I had brought up last year when the phone calls were being made. So that does match the same number that we discussed in the previous meeting of the 8 million. Now, we are the purveyors of the first year. So I think, quite honestly, this needs, it should go to like a strategic initiatives committee, not back to management. You know, we're the ones that control the purse strings in this county. And they don't get to decide which projects are necessary for you. You're the authority. You should be deciding what projects you need to do and come to us for the allocation. The executive branch really doesn't need to be in that mix.
We agree with that. We are just going over with county administration the viability of them being accepted uses using the ARP funds. And that was the list that we came up with as priority projects for the flood protection authority.
Mr. Yanuzzi is correct. We're just discussing what the eligibility of the projects are under the ARP plan.
Right.
It's absolutely a council decision as to the amount of monies that may be distributed to the flood authority.
And knowing that you're going to be doing all of these projects and hopefully all of them and remediating all of this, I would hope that you would be able to bring that bill down to the people that do pay, the ratepayers that are paying for the levy system, because if all of these pumps are going to be fixed and all of these buildings are going to be rehabbed, then my expectation is that bill comes down for the taxpayers
for the future.
We've discussed that a benefit will be passed on to the consumer.
Right, but you're not part of the authority. They are.
Yes.
They control the rate.
I know, but that's part of our discussions. We've had that
Right,
discussion.
but
with
that
the
should
authority.
be included with council too. And that's why I said this should go to strategic initiatives where all of us can talk about it, not just two parties.
Mr. Urban, thank you. They're very good comments. As Ms. Crocomo did mention that we have been talking with the administration on different ways, and we have a meeting next week. The authority does next Tuesday. And we plan to come up with a plan to help alleviate some of the financial burden on the ratepayers as best as we can with these funds. These funds, a lot of these projects are capital improvement projects, which the authority runs on a certain budget, and a lot of those items are continually every year expenses for the authority. These are going to help with a quicker completion of some of these capital projects to help fortify the flood protection system and make it, safer overall.
Right, and I have no problem with that as long as the ratepayer pricing goes down.
Correct, and then again, we're going to be looking at that, and we're looking to vote on that at our next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton.
Yeah, just to kind of dovetail off that, the list of 20 here is in front of me and in front of all of us. And I was wondering if it would be possible, and I definitely think after what I say here, it should go to the Strategic Initiatives Committee for discussion. And I think if you were to look at this list, not tonight, but you would probably agree that some of these items are in worse deterioration or more need of repair than some of the others. So would it be possible for your board to prioritize and put numbers next to all of these items? In other words, if the Strategic Initiative Committee couldn't see fit to do the last two, say, at least they'd be prioritized. They wouldn't be suggesting cutting out something that you most needed. So I'm wondering if that could be possible to just put 20 numbers down, but in a different order than 1 to 20.
Understood. We will work on that, and it's going to be hard to prioritize some things in front of the others, but we're going to do our best.
If you could,
Thank you.
if they're all
It's a
equal,
good point.
put they're all equal then,
Good point.
I do agree, it should go before the Strategic Initiative Committee. Yeah.
One comment. I've been vocal about this before. This is the first where I would put any American Rescue money, because it just happened in 2011 that we had a very bad situation. If it wasn't for Bob Miracle bringing his equipment in and his men, we would have had a real bad situation. So what he did was save lives and save people's homes that people work for all their lives. So I'm in total support of anything that is badly needed here. The funding from that American Rescue money should go to saving people's lives and saving people's homes. That's my statement.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else for Mr. Bellman or Mr. Uzi? If not, moving on to agenda item number 9. Thank you both for coming.
For the opportunity.
Number 9, discussion regarding NEPA land bank request. I believe we have Joe Chuck on the line to discuss this, or is Manager Kokomo wants to say anything? Or if we could just hand it over to
Hand
him.
it over to Mr. Chuck.
All right, Mr. Chuck?
Good evening, members of council. My name is Joe Chalk, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Northeast Pennsylvania Land Bank Authority. The Land Bank Authority includes the Township of Jenkins, the City of Pittston, and the boroughs of West Pittston, Duryea, and Avoca. Just a little background, land banks have existed in the United States since the late 1960s. However, they were only established in Pennsylvania in 2012. Our land bank formed in 2014. We were the 4th land bank in the state and the first multi-municipal land bank. Since then, we have been slowly working on acquiring and dealing with blight in our communities. And we've mostly have been funded. We did receive a couple LSA grants that did get us started. However, we have no, other than the tax share that we get with the municipalities, the school district, and the county for the properties that we return to the tax rolls, we have no other funding source. So in January of this year, the United States Treasury, after a great effort by my counterparts across the nation, recognized that blight and vacant properties is a health issue, an economic issue that we all suffer from, and included it in the final rule. As I note in my letter to council, 11% or 1,300, almost 1,300 properties in our jurisdiction are currently vacant. That number does not include the properties that are in poor condition or code deficient. In the city of Pittston itself, more than 60% of all properties in the city of Pittston were constructed before 1939. As you can imagine, they were coal miners' homes. So even the homes that were built then were very shoddily built. So there is great blight in the greater Pittston region, and we're looking for some help from the county to help us address some of the issues that we have. And I look forward to answering any questions or comments council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Shock. Councilmember, do you have any questions?
I personally, I'm in favor of this, you know, for this organization, but also I would like to see some go to the lower end of the county also. So if we're gonna spend the money, I'd like to see it, you know, spilled out through the whole county.
Okay.
So that everybody can get rid of some blighted properties.
A couple of months ago, the city of Hazleton came forward with land bank. They weren't very organized board-wise. They are right now. So, yeah, I would say what you just said, that help be put out everywhere. For these people.
Thank you.
And just on revitalizing downtowns, Pittston's the model of, if anybody has ideas of going forward, the first person I would talk to is Mayor Lombardo there and the people that he had on his committee, because the transformation from where Pittston was till it is now, I mean, those people deserve all the credit in the world. They did a great job of revitalizing Pittston, but I fully support this blighted property.
Do we have, is there a list of what they are particularly going to use the money to, like specifically at this point? Is there?
I could comment on that.
Okay.
Just so you all know, back in 2014, I was one of the founding members of the Land Bank Authority up there. And I was a representative from West Pittston Borough. And we had representatives from all the borough townships in that list. And it was tough right at the beginning. The only money we got was a little bit from the LSA initially. But with each town presented a list of the top 3 residential properties that had to be addressed. Horrible, horrible state, dangerous, unsafe, unhealthy, you know, and immediately the authority went ahead and started, and they would buy up these properties, and if they would be habitable, we would do it, but if not, we would demolish them, raise them and remove them and leave the empty lot there. And they do have a list. We always had a list. I was on it for 2 years and then I left. And Mr. Chalk could probably talk about that. Do you have a list of properties that you prioritize?
Yeah, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
2 answers to that question separate. I do have a list of how I propose to use the $500,000, which would be to, you know, demo, acquisition, new construction on a lot that we own, rehabbing a house that we own for affordable housing, and all the legal and engineering costs associated with that. I do have that list. I do have pictures on that little narrative I wrote up. I'm willing to, I can put that out there. But if you go to our website, which is nipalandbank.com, all of our properties are mapped. 95% of the properties have pictures with them on our website. All of our policies, our priorities, all that stuff is listed on our website. And it's there for the public view.
And I apologize if it was submitted already, but if you could get that to council, that would be very helpful of what you plan
Yes.
on using the 500,000 for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke.
Oh, I was just gonna piggyback on some of the other comments that were made. And I have seen the list as well. I did ask Mr. Chalk if he would send us an email with the list on it, and I did receive, I apologize for not, that's my fault for not forwarding it to the rest of the council. And I know some of those properties personally from interactions I've had in my job. But I would 100% be for supporting this, and if any other land bank or any other entity came to us with the intention of removing blight, this is something that I ran on. This is 100% really important to me. But I would love to see if the Greater Hazleton Land Bank would come to us and they had a proposal. I would give it the rubber stamp just as quick as this.
And could I just follow up? Mr. Lombardo and I had a conversation about 2 weeks ago about this. He is very concerned about blight. That was one of his main issues when he ran for office. And I can honestly say that the Northeast PA Land Bank Authority is a very, very well organized and well-run organization. I suggested to John, I said, I wish a group in Hazleton who's interested in that could get together, like the group you said, and maybe one in Wilkes-Barre and maybe one in Kingston or wherever, and meet with these guys and just let them lay out exactly how to proceed, help them get going, help them get started. And, we might be able to tackle blight in all areas of the county, and in the next few years could really move forward on that. So I encourage that if they could get together somehow, cooperation.
I also did ask Mr. Chalk specifically if that was something he'd be interested in doing. And he said he would be 100%. If we want to facilitate that in any way, that he would be for that.
Great.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Does the
If I
private
may,
committee have to,
I'm sorry, I just want to interject.
1 second.
I just want to interject on that.
Number.
Okay.
Give me 1 minute. Go ahead.
does the Blighted Property Review Committee have to be involved in any part of this process?
What's that?
The Blighted Property Review Committee, does that have to be involved in any part of the process involving with blight, with purchasing abandoned properties or rehabilitating anything?
So the Blighted Property Review Committee gets when a property is deemed that way, it comes to that committee to agree that it is.
But does that,
If
I know that
someone
approval goes on to the redevelopment authority. I just didn't know if that had any part of the process involved with any of the stuff going on in the land bank.
Mr. Chalk, if you want to comment on what you were going to say after Mr. Thornton, and then if you want to, I don't know if you heard Mr. Wilovich, he's asking if you have any involvement with the county's Blighted Property Review Committee.
So let me answer Mr. Wilovich's question first. The land bank does not interact with the county's blighted property board. We handle our own properties through our process. To piggyback on Mr. Lombardo's and Mr. Thornton's conversation, I have counseled members of the Hazleton group on how we did that. I am currently speaking with members down in the South Valley COG, which is in the Nanticoke region, and I have also counseled statewide. I'm part of a land bank network that's just forming in the state of Pennsylvania. And it's something I do all the time. I was in Williamsport. I was with Towanda. It's something I'm willing to do, and I would do on behalf. And the last thing I want to note, if there is any municipalities interested in joining our land bank, that is an option. Has always been an option, and there's a process to do that. So any municipalities that wish to join our land bank can contact me or look at our website. All that stuff's on our website, and can join or seek to join at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Chalk. Any other council members? All right, if not, we have number 10, discussion regarding ordinance placing a government study commission question on the ballot. So I think you have a page on this in your packet. So if I could just comment on it, I think if Mr. Urban came to council about getting a solicitor for the council, and other issues with the charter arose, not necessarily issues, but how does one change impact other parts of the document? I think the charter has been in place for 10 years. I think if we were going to do a study commission, now would be the time. Over the last 10 years, we've seen what worked, what doesn't. I do think that while the charter is a great document, I do think that it has its flaws. We've seen that as it, when it, what rules state code or the charter, and there's discrepancies between that. So I think if a government study commission were to ever be formed, I think the 10-year mark of the charter is a good time. So we have this ordinance in here for us to discuss. I don't know if attorney like Sancy or attorney DeLuca want to speak to this.
You know, we were asked to prepare the ordinance related to impaneling, having the question put on about the Government Study Commission. It would not be able to be on until the general, as we discussed last time, when the ordinance came up with the ordinance to amend the charter, that we were running on a really strict timeline to be able to get it on the primary ballot. So we would be prepared if council would approve this. We would make sure we're prepared to have it on as a question for the general election.
And if I could just piggyback on that, the Pennsylvania, this is Shannon, the Home Rule Charter and Optional Plans Law is very specific on how the question on the ballot is worded. So it would allow for the enactment of a government study commission. However, no further guidance can really be given. So it would be a carte blanche, so to say, situation for the government study commission. They could decide to go back to third class county code. They can enact a new charter. They could take this our charter and enact various changes. So for example, we wouldn't be able to say, hey, take our charter and propose various recommended changes. Of course, they could do that, but we can't limit the question to just that. So I just, in full disclosure, the Government Study Commission could decide to do whatever they want.
Thank you. Any council members have comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would be opposed to this totally. Because once we establish this study, as Attorney Craig pointed out, they can do what they want to. Just a matter of not changing the charter. Maybe there'll be no charter. I mean, I don't think they would go that route, but it's not, you can't stop it. So I don't know, that maybe better ways to change our charter than going this route.
The voters would have to approve the change.
Yeah.
But I have a question about how the members would be. It says members shall be elected by the qualified voters at the same election. The question is submitted to the electors. So are they going to, they have to file petitions, but since it's a general election, we got a totally different timeline for that?
Attorney Craig Sancy, could you comment on that?
So if this were to be out there, yeah, they would have to be on notice then for if somebody were to be elected to the Government Study Commission, they would have to file their petitions in the time period specified by the election code. So they'd have to be on alert and watching what we're doing in order to submit those petitions. Otherwise, not that this can't be done, but if in November, County Council said, yes, let's place this petition on the ballot for the Government Study Commission, then we're at the next election in May of 2023 electing folks. So it would drag the process out.
What would be the term? That we don't even have it listed, how long a term would be for the people that would be elected for it? Did anybody?
Yeah,
discuss
just until they were able to submit the document to council.
It still seems like there should be some type of a term. maybe up to 2 years, no?
No, they have to submit the document to council. I mean, generally, I mean, the last government study commission, between being elected and having meetings until they actually got down to the drafting, that took at least a year, if not 2 years.
So it would just be open-ended until, but we don't even have what we want to address, correct? At this point, we're just saying.
Right, we can't specify what we want to
Okay, so they
address.
would just study, okay.
Yeah. Mr. Urban?
I was gonna say, if you could basically create a government study commission or put the question out there and a government study commission is formed, you're basically trusting the electors to get elected. At that point, electors will have consequences. And those individuals will have the ability to change the entire structure of Luzerne County government in the future, whether they want to go back to commissioner form, reduce the number of councilmen, change the charter in every single way possible. It's up to them at that point to recommend what they feel is going to be best for Luzerne County going into the future. I mean, the current charter has its flaws. I mean, the whole reason that we have a charter is so we can amend it. And putting ordinances up, is for us to do, I mean, to make it easy on the people if we so choose by a majority vote. I think the charter was supposed to be a living, breathing document. And Mr. Morelli could agree on that, even though I'm not a proponent of the charter, never was. There are good parts of it and there are bad parts of it. And it could be fixed by us if we hone the language and put it up on the ballot to allow the voters to change it. I mean, there's 6 other counties that have charters too, and I don't think they have a problem, like we do as amending their charters. I mean, it's the same process in those counties. Laflin County has a charter form of government too, or home rule. They chose not to change their charter recently, maybe because sometimes they see us being dysfunctional. But we can change certain sections. I think we should probably take certain sections and attack them. And this is where our own solicitor would come in handy to sort of tie up all those loose ends of various pieces where we're impacting certain sections. I don't think by getting a solicitor in our own world is changing the form of government. And that's where Mr. DeLuca and I very much disagree. Changing the form of government would be taking the 11 of us and reducing us down to 7. That's changing the form of government. Taking maybe 6 of us and voting us by district and having 5 at large. That would be changing the form of government. Going back to 3 or 5 commissioners would be changing the form of government. Simply getting a solicitor is not changing the form of government. It's allowing us the approval to have our own attorney to do the legal work for our own business. That's not changing the form of government. But doing this is just kind of like throwing it out there. If you get 11 members out there, they can recommend going in any direction with the whole new charter, and you may not be sitting here in the future.
Thank you. Any other council members have any comments?
Yes, I would be totally against changing the form of government back. I've served here 6 years. I think this is actually the purest form of government. I mean, we've had our arguments that we have disagreements, but we've made great strides from where we were with the county commissioners. I mean, you got to look where you were. You were like $500 million in the red. Now you cut that in half. You had no credit rating. You couldn't even go to a bank. Couldn't even go to a bank for credit. But now we have a very good credit rating. Bonds that we took out, they were 10 and 12%. They're down to 2.
Hey,
2 and
I'm
3%.
at the meeting thing.
Go ahead.
I mean, there were a lot of positive strides here made under this form of government. And to go back, that can never happen. But as Mr. Urban and Mr. Kerr said, there are flaws to the charter that have to be corrected. Let's have a committee and correct them. Not ever go back to that form of government.
Yeah, I think going back to starting everything over is not the way to go, I believe, correcting the charter, doing that, but not going back.
And again, this was, excuse me,
Oh, that's right.
sorry, but this was done by everybody here. We might have disagreed and whatever, but the bottom line, there's been great achievements made here, and that's working as a team.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I just want to say the same thing. You know, we have the opportunities to go through and pick at things, find things that we think are flawed and fix them. But we just have to work together, get the ordinances right, and make sure that we get them on the ballot for the people to choose for themselves. We don't have to reform the whole government, but we still have to work on what we have present, and that's the way to do it.
Thank you. All right, if nothing else, we have number 11, discussion regarding bylaws. So the bylaws changed, we would just need a motion at a voting session and a majority vote to remove a second public comment from the voting session. Remember, you have the email from Attorney Craig in your packet. Does anybody have any questions about that or comments?
I have a quick question.
Mr. Wilovich?
On the agenda, it says we're talking about removing a second public comment from the voting session. But here it talks about removing the comment from the work session, which is.
Yeah, and then it doesn't matter which one. We can edit it to be either one. The one we have to keep, and Attorney Lipsansky could weigh in on this. The one we have to keep is the one before the voting session.
Mm-hmm. That is, the wording was confusing between the email and what was written on the agenda.
Yeah, and absolutely, the public comment that has to be kept is the one prior to the voting session, because the public has the right to comment before council votes and takes action on an item. Typically, when you go to any other municipality, there's 2 public comment periods, one at the beginning, one at the end. This council chose to, back in 2012, add an extra 3rd comment period. So just so long as council has a period of public comment prior to a vote, eliminating one or the other is not going to violate the Sunshine Act.
Mr. Wilovich, Attorney Lipsansky's email talks about the work sessions, and our agenda item does say the voting session. Like she said, it could be either one, but I think her email seems to lay it out for removing the one on the work session.
I think a lot of the second public comment during the voting session it's on anything, so it does tend to be on the work session agenda items. Is there a way to move up the public comment from the work session from the end of it to the beginning of it? Is that something that?
Well, I think that would be to keep the 2 on the voting. So keep the one at the beginning and one at the end of voting.
And just take away the.
And then take away the work session comment.
And since council is not allowed to take any action at a work session,
right,
there's really no issue to be overly concerned about. And if something's discussed at a work session, 2 weeks later, we have a voting session, and there's plenty of time, right, the public could voice their concern.
Right, they can voice their concerns at the beginning of the voting.
Okay.
I was gonna say some of the meatier issues, I think, should go back down to subcommittee, so on a council perspective, like to have the 3 or 4 people or 5 people on the subcommittee do some of the bigger actions, and that way the public does have an ability to comment in greater detail on those action items that we know are going to be addressed, because sometimes, when you look at these agendas, they are quite lengthy for us, and we haven't done, quite honestly, all the diligence that's needed to look at all of this within 3 days time period. So then we're arguing these points out here at the council meeting. They need to go back to, like I said, either strategic initiatives or the respective committees to get hashed out, have the public be able to have their say as well. And I think that would be the only way that I would support a reduction in time. And then I would, propose that we do move the back end of the work session up to the front end then at that point in time. But, some of this stuff I think is very detailed. I think it should go back, get thrown back down. Some of the subcommittees, if I even have them, we're not going to utilize them. So I think we should utilize them and then bring it forward to the body as a whole going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Urban. Mr. Lombardo?
Yeah, if I could just make a comment really quick, sort of about the spirit of this suggestion that we have. I know there were a couple of comments from the public about us eliminating, one of these comment periods and talking about how we're limiting the amount of time they could talk and whatnot. That's not really the idea behind this. Plus, in the internet day and age, you all have our email addresses. We all see all the emails that you send us. I read every single one of them. And honestly, I do appreciate and listen to every single comment that comes from the public. And I have changed my votes just in the month and a half that I've been here based on some of the comments that I've heard. I think part of this is just to get rid of some of the redundancy, like was said before, most other governing bodies, there's a public comment session at the beginning and one at the end. And sometimes, I feel just in having watched these meetings and then attending them, that occasionally some of the comments become a little bit repetitive. And again, like I said, I do the due diligence to listen to everything and read every single thing that the public sends me, no matter how long and laborious it is to read it and research it. So that's why I'm in support of this. And it's not to stifle free speech or anything like that. It's just for that simple purpose of trying to streamline these meetings a little bit, which is one of the things that a lot of us campaigned on, is trying to shorten these meetings.
I agree. Okay, if no other council members have any discussion on number 11, we can move into public comment really quickly. Before that, as Mr. Griffith said, I had sent an email that I was sending Tim McGinley as my designee for the airport board, so I just wanted to say that at a meeting. And now we can begin public comment. Greg Brennan, I'm sorry I cut you off earlier, but you can go ahead now. Yes. From Mount Top.
Okay. Greg Brennan, Wright Township. Good evening, council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My mom is disabled. She has a genetic disease that is only going to worsen. She is currently recovering from one major surgery and has another 3 that are needed as we speak. It took everything she had to address the previous council on November 23rd. She came here because the community had worked very hard to compile riveting evidence of the condition of our roads. She's only able to respond to emails and social media messages moving forward. She emailed each of you on January 29th. She then sent a direct email to Chairwoman Radel and Acting County Manager Imelda Crocomo. She did not get a single response. I would like to yield the remaining speaking time I have and ask each council member and Ms. Crocomo why there has been no response. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan.
Mr. Brennan, sometimes if it's sent to the county, the email county manager, I don't receive it. So my direct email is my first name, ROMILDA.
Crocomo at Luzerne County .org.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the printout right here. I actually have 11 copies for everybody.
Okay.
So if you guys want to have this in paper, I can pass them out to you. Would you guys like that?
You can pass them out, Mr. Brennan.
Okay.
Can I ask what was the email regarding?
Email was regarding basically the ARP funds and why. So I have the papers here. She gave me a whole packet of them. So basically there are 12 of 16 of these projects that have been put forward. Last update was convenient on November 23rd of 2021 when that meeting occurred that she was able to show up at. 12 of the 16 projects are bridges, and basically there's been almost nothing put forward towards actual road repair rather than just cold patch and other things of that nature. So
did she have a couple of specific roads in the emails?
She doesn't have any specific roads, but I do know that I was just out on Lily Lake Road the other day, and I noticed that it was recently repaired on the shoulders, and there was already holes back in there. So there's multiple examples across the county. And they've been compiled over time. One question that she wanted me to ask you guys was, my mom handed out these big spiral booklets to the previous members, and some of you are new, and she was also wondering if you guys have also received that booklet. from the previous members.
New
Greg,
members
I
have
passed.
received them.
You have them? Okay.
Greg, I passed now.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. So, okay, I'll go ahead and pass these emails out. That way you got them also on paper as well in case you guys didn't see them. And then go from there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brennan. You can pass those to Mr. Wilovich, and he could pass them to the rest of the council.
Okay.
Mr. Morelli?
There's also one for them.
Good evening, council. So I came here tonight really to wait for the work session to speak on the items about the government study commission. And I'm glad, although I'm not glad that I waited all night, I'm glad to hear what the response was. First, I never really agreed all that much with Steve Herbert, but I think he hit it right on the head about what would happen if you move forward with the study commission about changing it. And it's very important that you understand the whole process, because the truth is, if this government didn't change, no one would be here right now. As Mr. Snee mentioned, there have been great strides, and let's not go backwards. If you create a study commission, you have to put 11 new people on, and you're giving them the ball to change the government in some way, shape, or form, and then it has to go back out to the public, along with the fact that you have to probably spend another $50,000 or $60,000 to fund it as well. So it's not a good idea. Keep the progress going. The county's going in a great direction. You guys are good counsel. You make the right decisions, tweak it, make some changes. Now, with that said, I will say, since I'm up here and I spent all night driving here, I do disagree with two attorneys. This debate has come up before. I don't think it's a good use of money. I have a lot of friends who are attorneys, but the last thing this county needs are two attorneys. You gotta figure out the cost. There are a lot of people in this county who don't make a lot of money, and you just don't need two attorneys debating each other. You guys can make the decision. And you know what, with all due respect and no disrespect to attorneys, they interpret the law. Yeah, you're supposed to help follow it, but you know what? Sometimes you don't always have to listen to it. You can interpret the law too. So, and I would also look at this as, I won't put this on the ballot. You know, if you want it, go hire them. I don't think you have to put it on the ballot unless I'm missed. Take ownership of it. Let's not take every tough decision and put it back on the ballot for the public to make. So if you want it, do it, but take ownership of it. But I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's good use of money. I don't think it's gonna really save you time or answers. And then lastly, while I'm here too, is I would not vote for that amendment of changing the time. I mean, listen, I get it. I was here, long meetings. It stinks, but you put your name in for the public, and you know what? These guys are the checks and balances. And sometimes it's hard to kind of hear them listen, and sometimes it's redundant, but you know what? They're the checks and balances. Because I do know other municipalities that are out there that no one goes to the meetings, and I'm telling you right now, they're doing things that are just crazy. So respect it. Maybe there's time to change the agenda and bring the time down, but it's just one of those things that's the right thing to do, is to listen to the public and give them the opportunity to speak. So again, good seeing you. Good luck. See you then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morelli. Mr. Fitzgerald?
Anyway, very intelligent guy, a lot of things. I'm gonna disagree with him on the lawyer thing. I think you guys need your own lawyer. I just, as far as, silencing us, I also agree a little bit with you as far as redundancy, and it is a pain in the patoochki. But like he said, people will repeat themselves sometimes because they have a passion for something, and you can't snub at their passion. There was 10 people that spoke for 3 minutes, that's 30 minutes. That's 26 sessions. That's 13 hours a year. That's what you get with the 3. Okay, so if you cut one, you're only cutting 13 hours. That's it. 13 hours. And then today, a lot of people spoke. So like I said, I don't think you should get rid of it. I agree with you, the redundancy. I think there's some things you could do to help that with the emails, maybe tabling, talking, and then before the meeting, address it. So then this way, maybe people feel like their issues were brought up and talked at council before the meeting. And I think that's a good idea with the emails and maybe talking about that. I think that's a great idea. That's it. And if you get frustrated people, they're gonna do frustrated things. They may have their friends. If you shut me up, I might have 10 friends. Go online, put 30 minutes back on your time. I mean, people can be spiteful. So I think that you shouldn't shut people down. I think people have a lot to say. And I think that you guys, for the most part, listen. Even people that don't agree, they listen. And that's all we want, as the public, is for you guys to listen to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Dartel?
Can I finish my story or no? Yeah, no. We live in a democracy where the First Amendment is the freedom of speech. We would not tolerate and we would not accept being silent and no one. Our founding father spent the majority of the time in the dark, writing the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, what we have today. Yes, you guys are in a tough position. But we're here. We the people will continue to come and we will ask tough questions. It's on each and every individual to make the rightful decision. Us, to work for us. Our story is long. That's the reason why I asked this tough question of each individual that's sitting on the board of the illegal immigrant. I wouldn't, yes, I am fighting against those people, undocumented individuals coming into our county. I do the same thing. Of any individual come from Liberia that have a hatred, a deep hatred for our country, the great United States of America. It's time for us to wise up. Deals should not be in the dark, because whatever goes on in the dark, light will shine. Let's get our act together and let us do the right thing. Because together, we will win this battle. So that other counties can follow our lead in Luzerne County. God bless you all. And God will continue to bless our nation, the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Dartel. Mr. Knapp?
Oh, excuse me, I took up enough of your time this evening, so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Newman?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to take about 10 seconds on item 10 and the balance of my time on item number 7. I agree with Mr. Snead. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Enough said. Number 7. I'm going to start with 2 positives and then I'm going to get into something else. 2 positives. Number 1, county's running very well. You have good management, and unless Ms. Kokomo is going somewhere in the next 2 weeks to 30 days, what's the problem if you go into March to name a new manager? County's running well. Secondly, your search committee, 2 excellent gentlemen sitting there. I've known them for years. I know other people on the council or on the committee. They've done their due diligence. I'm sure they've covered things like management style, experience on the private side, on the government side. I'm sure they've discussed their strengths, their knowledge, their skills, their abilities. I'm sure they've covered what their philosophies are on customer service, human resources, finance, employee relations, labor relations, very important items, safety and health. What's their philosophy on hiring? How are they going to handle attrition? How are they going to gauge attrition? What's their philosophy on how do we look forward on attrition? Diversity. Luzerne County is a very diverse county. We have industry, we have agriculture, we have cities, rural, suburbs. We have a lot of municipalities. How are they going to interact with each municipality? We have large townships, we have small townships, we have boroughs, we have 4 cities. These are the things that I'm sure they've covered, the nuts and bolts. So when they get to you, they'll be well vetted. Now, here's the pitfall. When it comes to you, the selecting official, but you're not a selecting official, you're selecting officials. You have to get 7 of you to agree on one of the candidates. Now, I don't know if you're going to have 10 members or 11 members, but it could come down to a 6-5 or a 5-5. What are we going to do then? What are you going to do? Can I have another 10 seconds, please?
10 seconds.
What are you going to do? Well, probably to solve the problem, well, let's bring the 2 candidates back. Let's do a second interview.
Thank you, Mr. Newman.
And these are the things that you need to do. There's no need to rush, is what I'm saying. Thank you.
Mr. Griffin?
I'll be real brief. I know Greg, Mr. Wolovich spoke about this preamble here. Very first 5 lines of that preamble are pretty important. And that's why the Home Rule Study Commission put that in there, in the preamble. I don't agree with Mr. Morelli a lot of the time, but I will agree with the statement he made. I understand meetings are long, and I understand we all have lives and we have things to do. These are 2 meetings a month that we do. I don't think it's a lot to ask to sit here and get public comment. I know when we're all running for office, we all want the public's comment then. I know when we're out walking the trails trying to get votes, last thing we want to do is tell some citizen, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk to you right now, I'm kind of busy. We don't do that when we're running for office. We hold conventions, we have places where people come, we want them to come and see us, they want to talk to us. We want all of that. But now that we're elected, we don't want to talk to people anymore. No, we don't want to do that. I know our time is important. If anything, I would take our public comment section off the end of the voting session and put it at the beginning of the work session, so people have an opportunity to share information. That's what it's about for the public, is to share information to council on something that you may not have thought of. Which, we all have lives, we all have a lot of things, we don't think of everything. And I can't tell you how many times somebody stood at this podium when I was sitting in those chairs and said something to me and I went, wow, why didn't I think of that? Because we just don't think of everything. So that's why it's important to listen to the public. I agree, sometimes they can be abrasive. I agree, sometimes they can be redundant. I agree, sometimes people stand here and say the same thing every week. I get it. That's the job we sign up for when we're elected officials, unfortunately. And that's the way it works. And we shouldn't shut the public out. I think we should give the public a chance to speak at their podium. If you want to cut down on the time, cut down on the time by bringing the work session agenda, put the public comment at the beginning of the work session. And that might be a help for at least the people to speak on work session agendas, because I think it's very important to get public input. The other thing I want to just say is the flood protection process of $8 million. I would not sign a single document till there's something in writing that says we get a break on the levy fee. Everything that they're getting money for is something that levy fee would be paying for. There is absolutely no reason why the taxpayers cannot get a break on their levy fees while that $8 million is paying for that. So if that's not in writing, I would not encourage a vote on any of that. And lastly, the flooding that happened in Drums, I know Ms. Crocamo lives down that way. It was devastating. I watched that on the news, and God bless those people. The water was just running through their yards. And I just hope somewhere along the line, this county can figure out some way that we can fix that problem for those folks down there in the lower Luzerne County area, Sugar Grove, Bobby Speed area. That was devastating. Thank you very much.
Any other members of the public?
Hello? Yeah, I'm trying to talk. Can I get heard?
Yes. Who is this?
I'm a college graduate guy here, just trying to talk to you guys and explain that I know there's going to be illegals that you're having move here that are from Afghanistan.
You have to state your name and where you're from.
I'm from the Dallas area. Name is Jason, and I'm from the Dallas Township, or you know where that's at, above by Lehman, Dallas, below is Kingston, Wilkes-Barre area. Now you have illegals that are going to be coming in, and they're from Afghanistan. And as I posted on the other things, they're following things that pretty much say to slay people like us or to lie to people like us. And they're probably Al Qaeda coordinate, or they're pro all that other stuff. And they're going to move these people to our area. They should not move to here. We do not consent to that. I say move them to the White House. If they're going to move someplace, they should not even be here, and definitely not moved in here because they're trying to get a voter database, and they're using us to like destruction from within with all these people coming in here like that are bad like that do not have America's best interest at heart. We do not agree with them being here as citizens. We need people like you who are in these council meetings to stand up, raise hell over those people, then kick them out of here and not have here, make them go to the White House lawn if they really want them. Because we're not going to pay our taxes to get invaders in that do not consent with America, do not believe in our Constitution, do not go by the oaths of what they are, by the dogma of the false child prophet, rapist known as Muhammad that they follow. The truth be told, I say nothing that is a lie. I need you guys to work for us because that is what you're in these councils for. These invaders, you need to make sure they do not come to this land area. They are not wanted as a taxpayer citizen in that Commonwealth area in Dallas. I do not want anywhere near them because I do not need any of them near. We do not need to sponsor for them. We have disabled veterans that should be taken care of more, or homeless people that are actual United States citizens that should be taken care of more than these invaders that they're trying to throw over to us. And I mean, come on, they even threw our own troops under the bus when they left Afghanistan back to the Al Qaeda Taliban when they left out of it with the people that obviously don't know how to operate. Point being, this is evidence that can be told all over, and we need people like you to stand up for us. Are you going to do so? That's how I want to end on that note. Are you going to be able to make sure that we can kick and not have these people come in? Because as a tax-paying citizen, I do not consent to them being in here. I do not want any of my money going towards them. We do not need these invaders.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Madam Chair, this is Mr. Rabo speaking.
Mr. Rabo, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to what was just said as far as the Afghan refugees, as you know, in one of the papers, it was said that Afghan refugees are going to be accepted in the Keystone Job Corps down in Butler Township. Butler Township Board of Supervisors had their meeting tonight, and they were discussing the lease for the Keystone Job Corps. And I do believe, if I remember correctly, last year during the real estate committee, the land around that area is owned by Luzerne County. So I do believe that the council does have purview in this calamity that's going on. And with respect, I do believe Luzerne County does work with Wyoming County on the workforce development through the state, which funds the Keystone Job Corps centers. So I would ask that the council have the acting county manager reach out to the Luzerne, Wyoming Valley workforce development and express our dismay with respect to these Afghan refugees and why they should be brought into Luzerne County, because this is a very big security risk and a threat. And I think that there needs to be due diligence done with respect to the county and in concert with our state and federal legislators through the county legislative committee through Mr. Schnee and Mr. Perry, and I believe Mr. McGinley, if I'm not mistaken, are on that legislative committee that can reach out to our state and federal legislators. This needs to be addressed because this cannot stand, as well as I would like to point out with respect to what Solicitor Lepsansky and Councilman Urban, Charter Drafter, Council Search or Manager Search Committee member Mr. Morelli said. I agree with all of them, and the charter there doesn't need to be a government study commission on changing the form of government. There needs to be a change in the conflicts, as the vice chairman said, between state law and the ordinances and the provisions in the charter. and that's what needs to be changed. And with respect to the land bank, I just remind you, council members again, that if whatever's done with Pittston needs to be done with Hazleton, because Hazleton does have a land bank and Luzerne County has a blighted property committee, which needs to be funded as well, because not all the boroughs and townships can go through the Pittston land bank. I know that, and I don't understand how the boroughs and townships in the Pittston Northeast Regional Land Bank can go through Pittston's blighted committee, because Pittston's blighted committee is for Pittston City's redevelopment authority and for their land bank. So I think that needs to be worked out. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Brian Steiner.
Oh. Go ahead, Mr. Steiner.
Hello?
Go ahead, Mr. Steiner.
Thank you. When home rule first started, we met at the EMA building. And week after week, that room was filled beyond capacity, standing room only. We sat on the risers around the sides of council. And many of the people spoke at all 3 allotment times. But that council didn't flinch. They dealt with it. And yes, it was a lot of repetitive and redundant people talking, or redundant speech rather, not people. But the council dealt with it. And now you're here where you are today because of all that. And now you're looking at stifling the people. You're now down to a bare handful of public participating in your meeting. As a matter of fact, before we went on to virtual, before COVID, there were many meetings that I was the only person from the public sitting in that room with council. You should look at the other side of this. How would you like it if all 285,000 of the people in this county, 18 and above, showed up and wanted to talk, even for just 1 3-minute period? It's what you signed on to do. It's what you ran for. You wanted to be on this council. You wanted to do this. Well, the preamble on the wall that is there through the help and insistence of my dear friend Ed Chesnovich says that the people have the right and responsibility to participate in all phases of our government. Now, you want to stifle that? You want to push the public out? You should be ashamed of yourselves. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Shiner. Any other members of the public? Okay, we had a motion and a second. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, meeting adjourned. Thank you. Have a good night.